Chapter 300. To come knocking for a fight. 17. Seeing the muscles on elder ancestor Lu's face twitching from fury, Nangong Lu Yun innocently asked, "Could it be that this king misspoke? How could it be wrong? Obviously it's right. The stake indeed was like this." However, what made Lu Patian vomit blood was that before, he had felt that Lu Chengfeng had 100% chance of winning. Thus, he had put down the bronze plaque as a stake for the bet. In actuality, if that bronze plaque had ended up in the hands of an exceptionally talented genius, not to say 50,000 gold coins, even if it 500,000 gold coins, he would definitely buy it without blinking. But now, what could he say? Say he was not going to let it be? He couldn't set this person aside. Lu Patian was about to bang his head against the ground. Originally today, they came knocking on his residence to seek justice. He wanted justice. Before, he thought that even if he couldn't capture that thief, he could still demand back that cyan-colored crystal stone. But who would have anticipated that a grand 7th rank expert, in Prince Jin's royal manor and in front of His Highness Prince Jin, was nothing but trash? He wasn't even worth a fart. Today, not even mentioning demanding back the cyan-colored crystal stone, he had just advanced to the 7th rank today and should be overbearing and arrogant, but instead brought back a severe injury. Demons know when he would recover completely. His healthy grandson had his hands severed at the wrist by the opponent, yet he was powerless to prevent it. Moreover, he was also powerless to avenge it. In addition, that bronze plaque was a treasure passed on for generations in the Lu family, and like this, was lost in a bet by him. The more Lu Patian thought about it, the more frustrated and angry he felt. The more he thought about it, the deeper his hatred. It was to the point where he could no longer hold it in and spit out a mouthful of blood. Grandpa Lu Chengfeng, with great difficulty, stopped the bleeding from his wrist. He had just raised his head when he witnessed his household see stabilizing divine needle, the most respected elder, throwing up blood non-stop. He was so frightened that his face turned pale and he flew over. Now, Lu Patian wished he could throttle this rotten child Lu Chengfeng to death. If he hadn't coveted that cyan-colored crystal stone and lied in front of him, everything that happened today would not have occurred, most definitely not. In fact, Lu Patian also did not want to think that if he himself hadn't lusted after that cyan-colored crystal stone, all this would not have happened. Grandpa faced with Lu Potion's fiendish pair of eyes, Lu Chengfeng was nearly scared out of his mind. He could almost foresee in the future, at Lu Manor, there was no place for him to stand and establish himself. Get lost. Lu Patian stuck out a foot to kick Lu Chengfeng. When Lu Chengfeng was kicked flying, at the same time, Lu Patian once again couldn't suppress it and another mouthful of blood gushed out from his mouth. The floor was now covered in blood. All of the bloodstains were contributed by the Lu family's pair of grandfather and grandson. Su Luo frowned. Wasn't the smell of blood too strong? The odor really didn't smell that good. Nangong Lu Yun impatiently held his nose. Guards come, quickly drag them away.
Yes.
Prince Jin's royal manners guards, who had already been standing on the side, approached and dragged the pair of grandfather and grandson pair from Lu household away. The grand and stately Prime Minister Lu's father, a majestic and stately 7th rank expert, in this sorry and pitiful manner, left the field. It was truly sad, pathetic, and lamentable. As a result, Lu family's grandfather and grandson had come aggressively, but left with their whole bodies spraying out blood. This morning, when the Lu family's pair of grandfather and grandson came, they had made a ruckus. This therefore caused the surrounding people to watch on the side. The crowd of people standing in a circle watching naturally wouldn't dare to enter Prince Jin's royal manor. However, they succeeded in surrounding the perimeter of Prince Jin's royal manor, waiting to watch a good play. This matter was still allowed. Before Lu Chengfeng entered, he had flaunted loudly, showing off that his grandfather Lu Patian was a magnificent and grand 7th rank expert. His strength, in comparison, had already surpassed His Highness Prince Jin's in every way. Thus, the surrounding crowd of people were all very curious. They were all guessing as to the result of Lu elder ancestor entering this way, whether he would win or lose. Chapter 301. Returning to Su Manor, 1. There were actually people who took out a dish to start betting on His Highness Prince Jean and the 7th rank Lu elder ancestor from Lu family to see who would win and who would lose. On account of His Highness Prince Jin's many years' prestige and being a super gifted genius fame, the overwhelming majority of people bet that His Highness Prince Jean would win. As a result, people who bet money, people who didn't bet, those that were enjoying watching a show, everyone, without exception, all crowded on the street where Prince Jin's royal manor was. All of them surrounded the safe area 300 meters outside of the residence, animatedly waiting to watch the show. Sure enough, as they had expected, not long after, the elder ancestor from the Lu family, who had come to the gate in a rage, ready to go all out in a battle, was unexpectedly carried by people and thrown out. At the same time, they also threw out the second young master from the Lu family who had strutted around the imperial capital backed by his family's influence. Crash when they saw the Lu family's grandfather and grandson pair again. The crowd of people watching all inhaled a mouthful of cold air. Tragic, simply too tragic. The Lu family's elder ancestor's clothing around his chest area was covered in blood. His complexion was as pale as paper, with both hands trembling and shaking. He was tossed to the ground and couldn't even crawl up. This person was actually a 7th rank. A grand and majestic 7th rank expert was actually tossed out as if tossing out garbage. His Highness Prince Jean was simply not human. He was naturally a god. Compared to the elder ancestor from the Lu family, the Lu family's second young master was simply even more tragic. One could only see that the clothing on his body were rags. His head and face was covered in dust and blood, mixed with sweat. His entire person looked no better than a beggar. Nowhere did he still have a little of that normally jade-faced playboy appearance that was distinguished and confident. It simply was as incomparable as night and day. Everyone was extremely stunned. Their admiration for His Highness Prince Jean became even greater, like the waves of major rivers, continuous and endless. Hey, like I said, Lu family's elder ancestor isn't worth a damn. He would even dare to bring the fight to Prince Jin's royal manor. See, this time, wasn't he thrown out? That's right, that second Lu young master, just a moment ago, was still boasting by saying that his grandfather had broken through to the 7th rank. Why is it this 7th rank seems so weak? Perhaps he was only talking big? Maybe he wasn't bragging. Can't say for sure if that Lu family's elder ancestor is indeed a 7th rank. The only thing that can be proven is that His Highness Prince Jean has formidable strength that is unsurpassed. That's right, a 7th rank expert was beaten like this and successfully driven out in a clean sweep. Heaven knows how deep and profound His Highness Prince Jin's strength is. It simply is too terrible. He isn't even 20 years old yet. At that moment, everyone was spiritedly discussing this. Numerous words of praise were heaped upon the body of His Highness Prince Jean. They practically lifted him onto the altar of gods with their praises. As for Lu family's elder ancestor, he was naturally trodden into the dust. Ignoring the spirited discussions and hubbub from outside, within Prince Jin's royal manor, the follow-up was still developing. Su Luo curiously fiddled with the dark bronze plaque in her hand. This bronze plaque was approximately the size of a child's palm. It was square-shaped, with an outward appearance that was black as ink. There were only 3 words carved on top, and the font was flamboyant. Even if you carefully considered it, you would also not be able to recognize it. Apart from this, there was nothing else that could be made out. Su Luo couldn't tell what it was, so she lifted her eyes to ask Nangong Lu Yun, "What is this thing?" After Lu family's elder ancestor lost it, he had an upset appearance. It was sufficient to prove that this thing was a treasure. She still really couldn't make out what was so mysterious inside this. Nangong Lu Yun raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Really don't know what to say to you, this girl. That would be good. Yesterday, you refined spirit restoration pills that are comparable to intermediate levels medicinal pill. You also broke through to the 3rd rank. Today, you obtained another treasure from that old, coarse fellow from the Lu family. Hey, this is indeed the Lu family's secret cultivation method that isn't spread out. Do you not see what words are written on top?" "What words?" Su Luo gazed attentively at the front side of that piece of bronze plaque with its flamboyant, illegible, wild and rash words, Spirit Dance Steps. Chapter 302. Returning to Su Manor, 2, right? It is precisely the Spirit Dance Steps. The corner of Nangong Liuyun's mouth hooked into a devilish smile. The Lu family's Spirit Dance Steps. This is the most outstanding martial arts teachings under the heavens that became extinct. That you can use such a manner to obtain it, it can really be said that your luck is so good as to defy the natural order of heaven. Su Luo expressed her puzzlement. Since the Lu family's Spirit Dance Steps is so prominent in the world, why is it that Lu Chengfeng and them seemed unable to learn it? Is it because to learn this there still needs some other condition? Nangong Luyun smilingly pinched Su Luo's little face, nodded his head and with a smile, said, "A child that is also teachable, Lu girl is indeed smart. Just talking, and you are able to see the main point. Obviously, it was you who at the beginning when attacking said that this generation of the Lu family did not have anyone qualified to learn it." Su Luo massaged the cheek that was pinched until it was a little sore by him. With puffed-up cheeks, she glared at him. "Quickly tell me, in the end what is the matter?" Nangong Luyun smothered a laugh, on one hand teasing her, and on the other hand explaining to her to clear up the confusion. If you want to learn this shadow-like dance steps, the first prerequisite is a powerful and strong mental focus. Do you still remember your mental strength? When you tested it, you reached the purple color. Only this kind of gifted talent could practice Spirit Dance Steps. As to this generation in the Lu family, there is absolutely no one in the younger generation with this aptitude. So it was like this. No wonder just a moment ago, before when Lu family's elder made the bet, he regretted it and wanted to take it back. As a result, he was conned by you and stopped. Su Luo smiled very proudly and flipped a glance at him. You, such a two-faced, sinister guy, since the beginning, you were scheming against them. Their old man also does not have it easy in life. Nangong Luyun was hooked by Su Luo's glance until he was head over heels infatuated. He grabbed and held Su Luo in his arms and started to laugh heartily. "No better or worse than you, Luo girl, even though I do not know the reason. But didn't you still assist and pretend together with this king? Who else would have this kind of rapport with you? How about Lu girl just marry this king now?" Wishful thinking. Su Luo let out two snorts and pushed him away. Now that the Lu family's grandfather and grandson pair have been carried out, those people that were lying in secret waiting to ambush outside the residence should also have withdrawn, right? Nangong Luyun noncommittally let out a hum. I have already gone out for a few days, and still don't know what is happening in Su Manor. I ought to go back and have a look. Su Luo somewhat helplessly sighed and said, "Really hope that there wasn't an accident." Humph. Once he heard that Su Luo wanted to go back, Nangong Liuyun's entire face was unhappy. With a disagreeable expression, he turned his face away. "What are you doing?" Su Luo impatiently pinched his cheek. This guy who looked very outstanding and formidable, why was it that sometimes he would seem so childish? She helplessly said, "For no cause or reason. Why are you getting angry? You really look very childish. Okay, stop being mad." "Then you must not go back." Nangong Luyun grabbed her hand and pulled it to a stop. His pitch-black eyes fixed their gaze on her. His eyes had an expression full of hope and strong expectations. Not mentioning what Su Luo felt, now the servants in Prince Jin's residence that were standing below, collectively, simply all of them seemed to be swept by the wind into disarray. Heavens, ahahahaha. Was this person really their brilliant, with amazing martial arts and insufferably arrogant, His Highness Prince Jin? This acting like a spoiled child, rolling around, pretending to feel wronged and acting cute little appearance, clearly was like a brat asking for candy to eat from an adult, don't you think? Compared to the Prince Jin like this, they were even more used to that at the slightest thing would cut off a person's limb, blood flowing thick like a hurricane, type of His Highness Prince Jin. Don't you think so too? A crowd of people, with their eyes wide open, all freakishly stared at Nangong Luyun. They were itching to throw themselves up there and check to see if their family's highness had been switched with another person. Su Luo was a more sensitive person. All at once, She was able to perceive the peculiar light in the servant's gaze. She recalled that right now, they were in a public place with numerous people present. She casually feigned a light cough. Nangong Luyun, you are His Highness Prince Jin, however. What about your image? Chapter 303. Returning to Su Manor. 3. Why was it that this guy didn't appreciate her good intentions even a bit, and instead directly pounced on her and embraced her? He even leaned close and breathed into her ear, spurting out hot, fervent breaths while leisurely saying, "Ever since I meet you, my image had left home. Do you want to find it and bring it back?" Su Luo was simply speechless to an extreme point. She somewhat flusteredly pushed Nangong Luyun away. "A lot of people are watching. For my benefit, you should act more decent. Don't ruin my pure reputation." In the future, she still wanted to marry and be someone's woman in the traditional role of a good wife. Nangong Luyun was like a scoundrel sticking to her body. No matter how she pushed, his body would not move a jot. The strength of his arms were as powerful as an iron clamp. It seemed as if only just now did he notice the many gazes that were as bright as daylight from the unwanted guests at his side. Consequently, His Highness Prince Jin, who was just now smiling at Su Luo almost salivatingly, turned his head and faintly swept them a glance. This glance that he swept them with seemed ordinary and calm, but after those servants were swept by that gaze, without exception, they were full of fear and trepidation, as if facing a disaster. This expression was too frightening. Couldn't be wrong. This person was indeed their Highness Prince Jin. That expression, that aura of death, that awe-inspiring dignity, clearly it was him. His Highness was still that Highness, very terrifying. A herd of servants promptly scattered like birds and beasts. In the blink of an eye, they skillfully left, completely not leaving even a single trace. This was already not the first time Su Luo saw such a scene. However, she was still not used to it, letting out a dry coughing sound and somewhat speechlessly turned her face away. Who knew that now? Nangong Luyun would actually fawningly pull at her sleeves while trying to win her favor. His face had a smiling expression with a wheedling undertone. "Well, now that the idling people etc. have all cleared out, can we continue?" "Continue what?" Su Luo expressed her confusion. "You lied to me." God knows why Nangong Luyun would glare at her with a face full of accusation and hidden bitterness. That little appearance was simply adorable to the extreme. "What did I lie to you about?" Su Luo blinked innocently towards him. Such a huge reaction from this guy. People who didn't understand would have the impression that she had ruined his purity. Nangong Luyun let out two humph sounds, saying resentfully and accusingly, "Just now, you had obviously disliked the offending stares of many people, thus were unwilling to be affectionate towards this king. Now that the people have all left, why haven't you come over quickly to kiss this king yet?" 3 black lines appeared on Su Luo's forehead. This person was young, but he should not be this childish. He was still a prince. She just knew that Nangong Luyun, this guy, didn't have a bottom line. If you took him seriously, you would lose. "Enough. Not going to play with you now. I want to go home." Su Luo fiercely sucked in a deep breath. She constrained the fire in her chest and said it with a deadpan expression. Nangong Luyun saw that Su Luo had already decided to go back. He could only pull at her sleeves. "This king will accompany you and go back together, okay? Don't. By all means, don't." Su Luo made a quick decision and declined right away. "If you and I go back together, what would it be regarded as? Everyone would think that the married-off daughter had returned home. This absolutely, definitely, must not be done. If it was done like this, the consequences would certainly be grave." This was also out of the question. That was also met with refusal. The hidden bitterness in Nangong Luyun's eyes was becoming increasingly obvious. He spread open a pair of vivid and bright eyes like peach blossoms, not speaking a word. Just like this, he looked at Su Luo, always watching continuously, watching until Su Luo's scalp felt numb. I will return first. You do as you see fit. As long as it doesn't affect me, then it's good." Before she finally slipped away, Su Luo, in the end, still threw out such ambiguous words. However, Su Luo did not know that just because of these ambiguous words, Nangong Luyuan was about to bring her what kind of pleasant surprise. If she knew, very likely, she would ruthlessly tie up Nangong Luyuan and not let him take a step out of Prince Jin's royal manor. Okay? Chapter 304, Returning to Su Manor, 4. Su Luo washed off her disguise and changed back into what she normally wore every day. She quietly, and without rest, slipped back into Su Manor. Seeing Su Manor's current condition, Su Luo couldn't help but to suck in a breath of cold air. She hadn't left for that long. Counting with her fingers, it was only one night and nothing more. However, wasn't Su Manor's change rather too large? Originally, Su Manor had a towering, majestic, and luxurious atmosphere, but owing to the berserk 5th-rank Fierce Panther going crazy, more than half of Su Manor had been destroyed. Now, what appeared before her eyes was an ash-gray scene of devastation that made people unable to bear to look. However, Su Luo's luck was still considered pretty good. Because the Fierce Panther was collared by Su Qing, therefore its hatred for her was the greatest. So it had only attacked the courtyards surrounding Su Qing's. Su Luo's courtyard, meanwhile, was separated from Su Qing's courtyard by a huge distance. Therefore, it had avoided the main disaster area. Her courtyard appeared to be undamaged. Originally, when she saw this kind of situation, Su Luo's mood was still very good. However, when she entered Wisteria Park, in a split second, her face pulled down. At this moment, Lu Luo's hand and foot were being forcibly held down by 2 maidservants. And in front of her, She was just standing there, strutting around while blustering to the servant Xiao Yu at her side. Beat her, heavily beat her for this, miss. Today if this loathsome girl is not beaten to death, then this miss won't go back. While speaking, She was also satisfiedly sitting on a chair, holding a little teacup leisurely and contentedly sipping tea. As she listened to the crisp and melodious sounds produced from Lu Luo being slapped, her mood became even better. It seemed that her face was simply glowing, and she was even leisurely crooning a little song. When Su Luo took a step to walk into her courtyard, the first thing she heard was the sound of Lu Luo being slapped. Her long, shapely eyebrows wrinkled slightly as she coldly shouted, "Stay your hands." Seeing that Su Luo had appeared, She seemed to be somewhat surprised. But very quickly, the corner of her mouth was brimming with a mysterious sly grin. "Oh, take a look. Who is it that had come back? You still know this is your home? Still know to return to the manor?" Su Luo's eyes indifferently swept a glance at her. Her thin eyebrows nodded. She also swept a glance at that Xiao Yu. "This lady told you to desist, didn't you hear?" Who knew that Xiao Yu would lift her head and mockingly smiled at Su Luo. "Is the 4th miss speaking to this servant? This servant is not your servant girl. Naturally, I do not need to listen to your orders." Even though she kept using the courteous "you" for Su Luo, yet at the same time, Xiao Yu's expression didn't have a little bit of respectful deference. While returning Su Luo's words in a subversive manner, at the same time, she lifted up her palm to slap towards Lu Luo's cheek. She was certainly not a good-for-nothing who didn't know any martial arts. Not to mention, even she was a first-rank martial artist, which was far more impressive compared to this good-for-nothing 4th Mississippi. Just when Xiao Yu's hand was only a tiny distance away from Lu Luo, the corner of Su Luo's mouth lifted into an apathetic sneer. Not knowing how she moved, one could only the brutal afterimage of a leg float pass. Then afterwards was only a violent blood-curdling shriek that came from Xiao Yu's mouth. At this moment, the Xiao Yu who hadn't had time to react was kicked flying by Su Luo. After that, her back heavily smashed on top of the wall. Finally, she slid down tumbling to the ground, motionless from passing out. Momentarily, almost everyone stared at Su Luo with an incredulous expression. With a kind of expression like seeing a ghost, they appallingly staring at her. Their eyes were opened wide into huge circles. Wasn't Su Luo a good-for-nothing? Wasn't it that she didn't have a little bit of cultivation strength? When all was said and done, how did she accomplish this? How could she directly kick a first-rank Xiaoyu flying and unconscious? Was this still a good-for-nothing? Su Shi's reaction was the largest. First, she stared blankly. Then a sinister expression flashed through her eyes and she angrily ranted. Su Luo, you slut! You dare to hit my servant girl? I will kill you. Hardly finished speaking, Su Shi directly slapped towards Su Luo with her palm. Chapter 305. Returning to Su Manor. 5. During the time it took for the force of Su Shi's slapping palm to arrive, Su Luo whirled her body and avoided it. She nimbly circled around to Su Shi's back and severely kicked at her tender, charming, and plump buttocks. The matter happened so unexpectedly, Su Shi was completely unguarded. This being kicked by Su Luo like this, thanks to the effect from gravity, her entire body facing forward abruptly dashed forth. She simply could not stop the forward momentum. Just as well, in front of her just so happened to be a very round and sturdy, iron-like wooden pillar. Only a huge thump ramming sound could be heard. Su Shi's head had close contact with the iron-like wooden pillar. Her entire head was pasted onto that pillar. Such an enormous force of impact slammed her whole head until it was dazed and confused. For a long while, she couldn't recover her senses because she was knocked stupid. When the surrounding flunkies and servant girls saw this scene, they were all stupefied. Each and every one of them had a dumbstruck expression as they looked at Su Luo. Then, once again, they turned around to shockingly stare at Su Shi, who had almost fainted from the pain of the collision. Didn't the fifth miss a few days ago just say that she had been promoted to the third rank? But how could she be so easily kicked flying by the legendary good-for-nothing fourth miss? This world was too crazy, too chaotic. Su Shi returned to her senses with great difficulty. She threw off the dizziness in her brain and turned around to look at Su Luo with a stupid expression. Very quickly, her expression recovered and she covered her sore forehead. In her eyes burned a raging inferno. Su Luo, you slut. You actually dare to kick me. Simply courting death. Su Shi's fury soared. Basically, she hadn't realized where was the unreasonableness in being kicked flying by a good-for-nothing. Shortly after, one could see her palm slapping towards Su Luo's face. Su Shi's full strength was in this strike. Her palm's strength was so powerful that it scared people. At this very moment, a contemptuous smile appeared on Su Luo's mouth. She didn't dodge nor avoid it, and her right hand was firmly clenched into a fist. Under everyone's astonished gaze, her fist met the force of Su Shi's palm head-on, connecting and joining together. The fist and palm intersected, producing a violent hitting sound. Afterwards, what astonished everyone was that originally, they thought that Su Luo would be slapped flying by Su Shi, but instead, she was able to receive that palm strike while firmly standing her ground. Su Luo steadily stood in her original place. In contrast to Su Shi, who had retreated back 7 continuous steps with thump, thump, thump sounds. Such an intense contrast in power made Su Shi immediately stupefied. No matter what, she didn't believe that this good-for-nothing was actually able to receive the power of her palm strike. In addition, she was able to send her retreating from the aftershock. She could clearly sense the surging spirit power within Su Luo's body. How was this possible? She was undoubtedly a good-for-nothing. For so many years, she had never cultivated. How could it be possible that all of a sudden, she would surpass her, this young gifted genius? This was impossible. Su Shi's eyes were full of disbelief, angry thoughts flashing across her ashen face. She gnashed her teeth and repeatedly humphed. Even if you, Su Luo, was not a good-for-nothing, so what? Even if you have also reached the third rank, don't even think about fighting with me, Su Shi. Netherworld soared. Soon after, Su Shi burst out with a shout. From her sleeves appeared the handle of a flexible sword. The light seemed to flow and shine on top of the sword, and like a ray of light, it ruthlessly thrust towards Su Luo's throat. On account of having been defeated by Su Luo twice already, Su Shi had a sense of crisis that she had never felt before. Now, her heart already had killing intent towards Su Luo. Netherworld Sword is the Miss's most accomplished skill. This time, The fourth miss is screwed. Having regained consciousness, Xiaoyu had her hand protecting her chest and sat leaning against the wall. She watched the fight in front of her, looking at Su Luo with vicious rays of light bursting from her eyes. The netherworld sword divided into two, then the two subdivided into four. When it reached Su Luo's throat, it had already divided into 8 sharp blades. The 8 sharp blades formed into a circle, with the head of the blades pointing straight at all the vital points on Su Luo's body. Chapter 306, Returning to Su Manor, 6. Su Luo's gaze was cold and calm as she watched those 8 cold double-edged swords quickly fly towards her. Even though Su Shi's netherworld sword technique's prestige was great and had a flourishing style with an extremely fast speed, but in Su Luo's eyes, it seemed full of mistakes. To Su Luo, its speed was slow, like a replay in slow motion. A ridiculing smile appeared in Su Luo's eyes. A third-rank Su Shi, if it was a few days ago, she would have had to use assassin methods if she was to defeat her. But now, too bad. She had also been promoted to the third rank. Third rank versus third rank. She was even capable of defeating Lu Chengfeng. Why would she fear a very minor person like Su Shi? The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked up slightly, not holding back any longer. She condensed 8 small fireballs that wrapped up all the sharp blades. Boom, boom, boom. The small fireballs crashed into the double-edged blades. The double-edged blades that were originally illusionary were now made formless, leaving behind only that cold sword heading straight for Su Luo's throat. Su Luo threw out her dagger that could cut through iron like mud. The dagger shot towards that sharp sword, and both weapons met in midair. Immediately, there was a burst of fireworks, with lightning sounds echoing endlessly. Soon after, the dagger that was currently winning pierced through the sharp sword and ruthlessly stabbed towards Su Shi's throat. Seeing that hellish-looking dagger rapidly approaching, a panicked expression flashed through Su Shi's eyes. She was overwhelmed with terror as she became aware of an aura of death sweeping towards her own throat. It seemed as if she saw the silhouette of the death god. With the dagger getting closer, the terror in Su Shi's eyes became increasingly clearer. She even forgot to dodge it. Just at this critical moment of life and death, a gold coin shot swiftly towards the dagger. One could only hear a crisp whiz sound. The dagger collided with the gold coin, and it shook a few times before finally falling to the ground powerlessly. However, before it could fall to the ground, it ended up in Su Luo's hand. Second older sister. Su Shi turned her head around, seeing the beautiful image of that woman appear. Immediately, her face was full of jubilation. Holding her arms, she was practically crying tears of joy. When the surrounding servants saw Su Qing's arrival, all of their expressions changed. Their eyes held reverence, but they shrinked their bodies, moving backwards to avoid her, praying they could evade Su Qing's line of sight. Su Qing, the rumored legendary gifted genius, was Grandmaster Lan Hai's personal disciple. At such a young age, she had already broken through to the 4th rank. Her future prospects were simply limitless and immeasurable. Su Qing had always been pure and cold as a lotus. She was known as an ice beauty. She would never berate a servant, but would kill people. She would show no mercy when killing people, and her methods were savage. As a result, the servants' fear of her in their minds was even deeper. Su Qing was dressed in a light green, unadorned skirt which clenched at her slender waistline. That exquisite little face had an austere expression. Her long, shapely eyebrows wrinkled. Evidently, she was not in a very good mood. Second older sister. You finally came. Boo-hoo boo-hoo, seeing Su Qing. It seemed as if Su Shi immediately got a backbone. Just a moment ago, both of her eyes were hazy with watery mist due to having received a fright. But now, they suddenly had 2 sparkling and translucent teardrops sliding down. She held on to Su Qing, sobbing and unable to say a word, but was furiously pointing at Su Luo. She was still sobbing spasmodically, though she also complained in a loud voice, Second older sister, quickly avenge me. Su Luo, this slut, wants to kill me. Su Qing tenderly wiped away that string of teardrops on Su Shi's face, saying with a bland tone of voice, "Foolish girl, you can't even defeat a good-for-nothing. You are an expert at bringing disgrace to father and mother. Now, see if afterwards you still dare to be lazy." The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a shallow, secretive, ridiculing smile. These words spoken by Su Qing were very interesting. She said that Su Shi specialized in bring disgrace to father and mother. This completely did not take her, Su Luo, to be part of the family. However, it was also correct, in Su Qing's innocent, lotus flower-like eyes that were pure and icily arrogant. How could it turn out to have a sense of Su Luo's existence, since she was a good-for-nothing? Chapter 307, Returning to Su Manor, 7. As expected, after placating Su Shi, Su Qing's pair of ice-cold beautiful eyes were like sharp swords hurtling towards Su Luo. She used a scrutinizing gaze to cast a quick sidelong glance at Su Luo. With an impassive expression, she frowned and said, "You are that Su Luo? Don't know what advice second older sister has?" Su Luo inscrutably met her probing gaze. Su Qing cast a cold glance at her. It was quite clear that she still hadn't placed Su Luo's existence in her eyes. She merely gave a light but cold snort. "Didn't expect that you girl was able to conceal it so deeply." Su Shi's strength wasn't at all lacking. Able to successfully force Su Shi to become like this, then Su Luo's cultivation was definitely above the third rank. However, what was baffling was that she couldn't sense even a little bit of the spirit aura on her body. This point, Su Qing was unable to understand even a little bit. Such a negligible cultivation of mine. How could it enter a cultivation expert's eye like second older sisters? Su Luo's gaze was blasé. The corner of her mouth moved slightly, and with a smile that was not quite a smile, cast a quick glance at Su Qing. Su Qing's, that kind of arrogant aura of looking down at everything, was everywhere. Even though she already knew that Su Luo was not a good-for-nothing, still, the current Su Luo in her eyes was still the same existence as before, that of an ant. She basically didn't feel that Su Luo was worthy of her notice. Naturally, Su Luo also didn't have a good opinion of her. However, although Su Qing's expression was cool, compared to Su Shi's, it was much more horrible. Even though Su Shi was spoiled, rude, and unreasonable, but her strength was shown right there. In addition, all of her emotions were exhibited on her face. At one glance, you could see through its depths. In contrast, Su Qing regarded everything with an impassive expression. Her complexion was smooth and tranquil with an apathetic expression. However, she seemed like an enigma. Nobody could guess what she was thinking. Su Qing bitingly glanced at Su Luo. The corner of her mouth moved slightly. "You actually have some self-knowledge." Her eyebrows lifted a tiny bit and was non-committal. Su Qing coldly said, "Since it's like this, then kneel down and kowtow to Su Shi, acknowledging your mistake. Kowtow 999 times, and I will spare you from death." Kowtow 999 times? Su Qing indeed was heartless. Su Luo glanced at her with an unmoved expression, then she coldly said, "Second older sister, you are unaware of some things. The first person that made a move to injure someone was not me, but Su Shi." Unexpectedly, Su Qing clearly nodded her head and coldly said, "She lost. Naturally, I will lecture her. As for you, you must kowtow and apologize." She knew, and yet still dared to be so demanding with her. It was truly two completely different standards. Su Qing was really emboldened by her backing. Su Luo laughed grimly in her heart, but it didn't show on her face as she coldly asked, "If not?" Su Qing impatiently frowned. "Since just now, you disregarded sisterly relationship and even dared to try shooting Su Shi dead, in that case, then have a taste of my dagger." She just finished speaking, and without waiting for Su Luo to respond, the dagger in her sleeve abruptly flew towards Su Luo. It targeted straight at the vital point on her throat. The dagger split the air and came like a strong wind. Didn't know how many times stronger it was when compared to Su Shi's move from before. A fourth-rank martial artist was really deserving to be called a fourth-rank martial artist. Too far above when compared to a third rank. However, a fourth-rank martial artist wasn't someone Su Luo hadn't killed before. Her complexion sunk down. A sneer flashed through her thoughts. Since Su Qing dared to strike, then today, let's have a look and finally see how difficult she was to deal with. See what kind of means and ability she had that let her be this arrogant. Su Qing made a move before her words had even faded. That sharp dagger immediately aggressively shot directly towards Su Luo. Its movement followed a strange trajectory, simply impossible for a person to guard against. Su Luo's hands intertwined together in front of her chest, condensing out a large black handprint. With a bang sound, it smashed towards that dagger. The huge, black handprint and the dagger rammed into each other. Immediately, Su Luo felt a burst of acute pain coming from the web between her thumb and forefinger. Chapter 308. Returning to Su Manor, 8. A portion of qi and blood rushed up from her chest, and Su Luo spit out a mouthful of blood on the spot. At the moment, she dared not be rash, with clunk, clunk, clunk sounds. Her footsteps hurriedly fell back from the recoil. She directly moved back a distance of more than 10 steps. Finally, her back severely hit the wall. This collision directly knocked her qi and blood into turmoil. A metallic and sweet taste came from her throat, and suddenly, she spurted out another mouthful of blood. Su Luo simply swiped away the bloodstain at the corner of her mouth. A pair of bright eyes stared at Su Qing. Sure enough, third rank and the fourth rank was as different as the sky and the earth. In addition, seeing the manner in which Su Qing struck just a moment ago, she clearly was not at the beginning of fourth rank. Instead, it appeared as if she was at the middle of the fourth rank. Because when she was at the Sunset Mountain Range being hunted by the subordinates of the Jade Lakes Ferry in order to kill her, the ones trying to kill her, if not at the third rank, then they were at fourth rank. As a result, with regards to martial artists at this rank, Su Luo was relatively more familiar with them. At this moment, Su Qing shot Su Luo a glance. That pair of clear and attractive eyebrows actually wrinkled. With regards to Su Luo being able to block that dagger from before, she was clearly extremely dissatisfied, owing to the fact that that dagger consumed 70% of her strength. She believed from the bottom of her heart that she could directly kill Su Luo on the spot. However, even if it was like this again, so what? Su Luo was simply not her opponent. A ridiculing expression appeared within Su Qing's clever eyes. Since you insist on courting death, then I will help you complete this wish. Perhaps before, Su Qing still thought that Su Luo wasn't worth consideration. She only considered her to be a disposable ant, but now, she clearly had her attention fixed on Su Luo. She didn't plan on letting her go at this point. She coldly humphed and once again struck towards Su Luo. This time, she didn't use a weapon, rather, she condensed her spirit force into her right palm. Her right palm slapped directly towards Su Luo's face. A moment ago, Sushi had used this exact move and was kicked by Su Luo. Su Qing had seen it very clearly. Now, since it was to help her younger sister retrieve back her dignity, naturally, using this strike was the best possible method. Su Luo's eyes flashed and a cold intent appeared in her pupils. Within this Su manner, Su Qing and she would just treat her with such aggressiveness. Saying it bluntly, it was even to the point of wanting to kill her. They were truly bold. Could it be that they were not even afraid of Su Zian? No, a ridiculing, grim, smiling expression passed through Su Luo's eyes. Usually, Su Zian wasn't happy with her, and to add on top of that, with last time's affair, he was even more unhappy with her. If Su Qing really killed her, then he would immediately look for an excuse for Su Qing to be exonerated, right? It was just like this. So Su Qing could have this kind of confidence and keep repeating the statement of wanting to kill her? Facing the approaching momentum from that tumultuous palm strike, Su Luo once again released a large black handprint in midair. Staking it all today because of her serious injury, she absolutely also wouldn't let Su Qing have an easy time. Just at this time, an angry voice sounded from outside of the door. Now, everyone just stop. Because of this voice, Su Qing's palm strike slowed down, then she withdrew it. Su Luo also followed by withdrawing her own large handprint. Both of them looked towards the place where the sound was coming from. They only saw Su Jingyu walking quickly towards them from outside of the courtyard. His forehead was full of sweat. His nervous expression still carried a thread of worry, furiously saying, "What are you two doing right now? Still think the inside of the manor wasn't damaged enough?" Su Qing frowned and was just about to speak, but was interrupted post-haste by Su Jingyu. One only saw Su Jingyu pull at Su Qing's hand and immediately start to walk away. "Second younger sister, your older brother has been looking for you for a long time and finally found you. Quickly come with second older brother to the reception hall." Su Qing unconcernedly shook off his hand, and in a cold, clear voice said, "Older brother's temperament seems a little too anxious." Unexpectedly, not only did Su Jingyu not listen to her input, instead, he was so anxious he nearly started to stomp his feet. "Second younger sister, you really can keep your composure. Do you know who came to our residence?" Chapter 309. Returning to Su Manor, 9. No matter who comes to our residence, older brother ought to be calm and unperturbed. You shouldn't be this worried and anxious, otherwise, how could father dare to hand over such a large place like Su Manor to you in the future? Su Qing frowned. Clearly, she was dissatisfied with Su Jingyu's conduct. Su Jingyu was so anxious that he almost stomped his foot. Why still be calm and unperturbed? His Highness Prince Jean has come to our residence. Who? Su Qing's complexion immediately became sluggish as she gazed at Su Jingyu with a complicated expression. Who do you think it is? On this earth, can there be a second His Highness Prince Jean in existence? Su Jingyu's anxious tone carried a touch of excitement. "Second younger sister, you are really too much. You and His Highness Prince Jin's relationship have already reached this stage. Why did you conceal it from us this tightly?" It even caught mother and father somewhat totally unprepared. Su Qing was somewhat puzzled. Apart from last time when she found out from the venerable Beichen Ying's mouth that His Highness Prince Jean had a favorable impression of her, recently, she hadn't even seen His Highness Prince Jean. Su Jingyu was so excited that he was nearly ready to dance in circles. He happily said, "His Highness Prince Jean brought over a lot of gifts, saying he heard that a small matter had happened in our manor, so came to visit with this purpose in mind. In fact, we all know that His Highness Prince Jean for sure came here in order to see you. Let's go. Why waste your time with a good-for-nothing? We should go see His Highness Prince Jean now without delay." Su Jingyu disdainfully swept Su Luo a glance, then he pulled Su Qing away and left immediately. Now, even though Su Qing's face was still as cold as frost as before, however, her eyebrows and eyes were hanging low, giving off a nervous, bewildered, and bashful appearance. No matter how you look, she resembled a young lady yearning for love. Where would she still have a little bit of the manner of an ice beauty? Seeing older brother pulling second older sister along as they quickly left, a touch of resentment flashed through Su Shi's eyes. His Highness Prince Jean, how could His Highness, that kind of god, start to like second older sister? Even though second older sister was indeed very good, but, originally, she thought that because she was marrying the crown prince, she would be the happiest and most noble woman in the world. However, compared to His Highness Prince Jean, the position of an imperial concubine for the crown prince seemed to be of little value or interest. If she was able to choose, of course she would also choose His Highness Prince Jean. But everyone knew that His Highness Prince Jean and the Jade Lakes Fairy was a couple. How could he all of a sudden fall for second older sister? No matter how much Su Shi pondered, she was unable to understand. The more she thought about it, the more unreconciled she became. Finally, she hatefully glared at Su Luo and loudly cursed, "Blockhead! His Highness Prince Jean treats second older sister with deep devotion, totally infatuated. In a few days' time, second older sister will become Princess Jean. You must be dying from envy." Humph. Su Luo, with her hand on her chin in a thoughtful posture, she thoughtfully watched the pair of brother and sister as they gradually walked further away. Then, She swept a ridiculing gaze at Su Shi, who was in front of her. This matter would indeed be extremely interesting. Through the disturbance Bai Qining made last time, Su Qing had actually really believed that Nangong Luyun harbored feelings for her. According to her interaction with Nangong Luyun in the past few days, she never saw even a little bit of association between him and Su Qing. He simply didn't even ever bother to mention her. Inside this zigzagging misunderstanding, it was indeed extremely amusing. If Su Qing knew that this was actually merely a mishap created by Bai Qining, that indeed was really looking forward to the fast change on her face. Su Luo thought up to here and couldn't help uttering a pff sound of laughter. Su Shi incredulously glared at Su Luo, using a looking at a lunatic expression to glare at her. You, such an idiot. Why are you foolishly giggling? Don't tell me you are not jealous or envious. That is His Highness Prince Jean. His Highness Prince Jean. Ah. Which girl in this entire world doesn't dream of being married to His Highness Prince Jean? You are still actually laughing? You are indeed an idiot. Chapter 310. Returning to Su Manor, 10. Su Luo leisurely cast a glance at her. Aren't you fooling around with the Crown Prince right now? What? You also fell for His Highness Prince Jean. Didn't expect Nangong Luyun, that guy, would have so many fans. Look, the little Lolita in front of her had the Crown Prince as a fiancé, but was still his devoted fan. Su Shi's complexion became stiff, slanting her face away in annoyance. Shut up. I'm not going to speak to you. Humph. After a heavy snort, Su Shi picked up her skirt, turned around and was about to leave. Just like this, you are leaving? Not going to drink a cup of tea before leaving? Su Luo asked coldly at her figure from the back. Su Shi turned around and heavily glared at Su Luo. She then turned back furiously and left with large strides. Even second older sister was gone. If she didn't go, what could she do by staying behind? She couldn't even beat her in a fight. This really could make her die from fury. When did this good-for-nothing strength already surpass hers? Su Shi decided that once she returned, she would go into seclusion and cultivate properly. Next time, she must beat Su Luo until not even a disc of armor was left, to weaken and kill her drive. Su Shi, the leader, had already left. What were the remaining people still staying behind for? The herd of people following close behind ashamedly fled in defeat. Su Shi was walking angrily. Suddenly, she returned to her senses and hatefully glared at the servants behind her. Her pale finger pointed at them. You guys, remember this from this miss? Today's matter, nobody is allowed to mention it. If even one person was to spread it outside, today, she was simply disgraced all the way to her maternal grandmother's home. The herd of servants were all like yes man, with their heads shrinking back and nodding, indicating that they would not spread it out. Xiao Yu covered the smothering pain from her chest, in a low voice, asked, Miss, the matter of the fourth Miss knowing martial arts. This matter would be hard to conceal, right? Humph. If she had wanted to go in front of Daddy to be awarded for her achievement, she would already have told him. Why should she wait until now? You guys, remember this from me. The matter of her knowing martial arts, nobody is allowed to mention. Since Su Luo, this slut, wouldn't say it herself, then wasn't it just perfect? Yes, yes, yes. The herd of servants hastily nodded their heads. The fifth miss, when handling matters, was ruthless and unreasonable. Her methods were cruel and she kept her word. Who would dare to disobey her commands? Speaking of the reception hall, on top of the chair, at the master's position up high, Nangong Luyun sat upright and tall. Evidently, he was holding a teacup made of white jade in his hand, unhurriedly tasting the tea. And below, Su Zian and the others sat in fear and trepidation, keeping him company. Under this oppressive atmosphere, nobody dared to even breathe out heavily. Even though in the beginning, Su Zian learned from Bai Qinying's mouth that His Highness Prince Jean was interested in his family's Qinger. However, he had merely smiled and didn't take it seriously. Yet, he didn't expect that it would be true. His Highness Prince Jean, who had never visited Su Manor, unexpectedly brought gifts while dropping in. His Highness Prince, would actually visit the home of a state official. If this was spread out, who would believe it? Su Zian trembled with fear as he took a quick peek at His Highness Prince Jin. Seeing his pair of enigmatic eyes, with the corner of his mouth perked up slightly, he was clearly in a pretty good mood. With this glance, Su Zian also felt reassured. Nangong Luyun leisurely drank a mouthful of tea. His phoenix eyes narrowed slightly. He cast Su Zian a faint glance. The great General Su has good fortune, such a spectacular and splendid good daughter. In the nation of Eastern Ling, how many people wouldn't envy you? His Luo girl was not only gifted enough to astonish people, in addition, she was also a wood and fire dual system apothecary. An elementary apothecary that could refine intermediate-level medicinal pills, a genius that was difficult to encounter in a millennium. This still said nothing of her being a space mage that had been lost on this continent for a long time. Every item in this pile, just randomly picking one to go out, was enough to amaze and make people awestruck. And his Luo girl gathered all these advantages into a single person. Really, having such a daughter, on this earth, whose fortune was better when compared to Su Zian's. Chapter 311. Returning to Su Manor, 11. How could Su Zian think of the so-called daughter from His Highness Prince Jin's mouth being Su Luo? In his eyes, Su Luo was merely an abandoned good-for-nothing. Therefore, when Nangong Luyun said this sentence, the first person who appeared in his mind was Su Qing. Bright rays of light flashed through Su Zian's pair of eyes. He humbly smiled, accompanying him while saying, "Your Highness's praise is erroneous. Although that girl's gift is pretty good, however, compared to your Highness's, she is merely like the dust on the ground, basically unable to be compared to you." Oh! Nangong Luyun was surprised. This Su Zian and the Lu family's elder ancestor had one point that was really similar. They were both strict in treating other people, but lenient towards themselves. Luo girl's gifted talent, in his eyes, would actually become mere dust on the ground? He himself, at his old age, was no more than a minor 5th rank. He actually still didn't consider Luo girl's gift at the apex of talents as worthy. If others were to say this about his talent, he absolutely wouldn't pay it any attention, but disrespecting his Luo girl, a touch of frost momentarily flashed through his pair of beautiful, vibrant, and bright eyes. The two people were totally unaware that they were talking at cross purposes. The person they were talking about simply was not the same person. Su Zian, completely lacking any awareness, seeing that His Highness not batting an eyelid while fiddling with the teacup, was still under the impression that he spoke correctly. And he still continued to talk nonstop in a self-deprecating manner. That girl, it is also thanks to her good luck. At a very young age, she paid her respects to a good teacher, otherwise, she also wouldn't have her current achievements. However, these accomplishments, compared to your Highness's, falls far too short. The distance is too far. Nangong Luyun frowned with displeasure. She paid respects to a good teacher? When did his Luoer formally become an apprentice to a master? Why was it he didn't know? Which master was it? Was the master a male or female? Was the master good-looking or not? Sure enough, men's IQ, when caught in the snare of love, were all unlikely to be very high, including His Highness Prince Jin. He immediately overlooked everything else and made a beeline for the main subject, becoming entangled in the question of Su Luo's teacher. He was just about to ask when the rushing sounds of footsteps came from outside the door. Right after, Su Jingyu's face that was full of smiles emerged. "It has already come to this. Why still be so bashful? Stop dawdling, quickly come in." Su Jingyu, with one step, entered the hall, but discovered that today's female lead, his treasured second younger sister Su Qing, had fallen behind. He turned his head for a look, and just so happened to see the spreading crimson on Su Qing's little face from modesty. Therefore, he urged her on with a laughing expression. Qinger, this girl, had always been cold and cheerless by nature, but once His Highness Prince Jin was mentioned, she would change entirely into a bashful young lady. It could clearly be seen how great His Highness Prince Jin's charisma and allure was. Su Qing nodded her head, controlling the colors on her face. She gave a clear cough. She forcibly retrieved the bashfulness from her face. Only after that did she lower her head and drop her eyes to enter the hall. Once Su Qing entered, Su Zian finally exhaled a breath of air from nervousness. Okay, good. With Qinger present, His Highness Prince Jin's attention would certainly not be placed on his body, right? Su Zian relaxed a little and wiped away the cold sweat that he wasn't sure when had climbed out onto his forehead. However, Su Qing's speed was somewhat slow. She took small, quick steps, every step seemingly giving birth to a lotus flower, with the posture of a graceful woman swaying gently towards His Highness Prince Jin, though her movements seemed a little stiff from nervousness. Within the reception hall, Madame Su Zian, and including Su Jingyu, the three people all had smiles at the corner of their mouth when watching Su Qing. This girl was normally very cold and pure. Now at last, she also knew how to be bashful. It ought to be this way. The smile on Madame Su's face was even more magnificent. Her smiling face was like a flower. She was extremely pleased with the current state of affairs. Su Shi being able to climb up to the Crown Prince's high branch already made her very happy. Now, Su Qing's ticket, compared to Su Shi, was even more of a victory. She unexpectedly made His Highness Prince Jin feel anxious and infatuated because of her, thus consenting to lowering his noble image to pay his respects by coming to Su Manor. Chapter 312. Returning to Su Manor. 12. Madame Su secretly thought with delight. She was definitely the daughter she gave birth to, as expected, extraordinarily charismatic. All the people present had their betting gaze on Su Qing's body. She paid no attention to the bystanders' gazes, but Su Qing covertly raised her eyes to look at Nangong Luyun. Seeing his pair of beautiful, black as ink eyes staring at herself, the crimson color she had curbed with great difficulty, with one brush once again appeared on top of her fair face. The sudden contrast of bashfulness against her skin repeatedly appearing was as gorgeous as the blooming cherry blossoms in March. When Su Zian saw Su Qing's bashful, taciturn little appearance, he immediately started to laugh openly. Ha ha ha, Qinger, quickly come over to meet His Highness Prince Jin. Su Qing bent her knees with eyes lowered, curtsying daintily towards His Highness Prince Jin. Meeting with His Highness Prince Jin, Nangong Liuyun's clear gaze cast her a shallow glance. His profoundly mysterious phoenix eyes narrowed slightly. Then he casually said, "Rise." Nobody minded His Highness Prince Jin's coldness. They all felt it was very normal. Moreover, they also felt his manner was unusually amiable. Madame Su smilingly looked at the people in front of her like a pair of jade annulus. The male was extremely handsome. The female was incomparably beautiful. They simply were an ideal couple, a match made in heaven. There wasn't anyone else that was even more suited. Good. It was really indeed exceedingly good. The corner of Madame Su's mouth started to split open. Her face had such a pleased smile that no matter what, she couldn't suppress it. It was truly like a mother-in-law watching her son-in-law. The more she looked, the more satisfied she became. Su Zian unceasingly cast meaningful glances at Su Qing. Su Qing knew that this was her father signaling her to be on more intimate terms with His Highness Prince Jin. However, they simply were not that familiar. His Highness Prince Jin came for a visit. Shouldn't it be him that took the initiative? How could they ask her to do it? Truly shaming a person to death. She furtively shot a glance at His Highness Prince Jin, and saw his matchless handsome and eminent face, which was like a Greek god of war. There was still his pair of eyes that was brighter than the stars. From its depths radiated faint rays of resplendent light. It revealed a peerless and exceptionally proud expression. That she could be adored by this kind of man, it truly was good fortune accumulated from many of her lifetimes. Never mind. Since he took the initiative to come to her door, then she also ought to take the initiative to respond back, as was proper. After all, His Highness Prince Jin was someone from high above her. That he was able to come to her door was already way beyond her expectations. Su Qing's heart was being very bashful. naturally. A little of it also appeared on her face. She shyly stepped forward and took the teapot. She poured tea into the white jade teacup that His Highness Prince Jean had set aside on the table. Your Highness, the tea in the manor naturally is not as good as the ones in Prince Jin's royal manor. Please pardon its quality a bit. Nangong Luyun once again cast Su Qing a glance and with an indifferent tone, said, Put it down, go sit on the side. This woman was Luo Girl's sibling, right? Alas, marrying Luo Girl was really not easy. He still needed to restrain his temper and endure feigning civility with these random people. Nangong Luyun thought somewhat impatiently. Yet, when Su Zian saw this, his heart was elated. Yes, sure enough, His Highness Prince Jean definitely had deep feelings and intention towards Qing'er. See, ever since His Highness entered the residence, he was the most pleasant towards Su Qing. He even granted her a seat. All these were sufficient to prove everything. Before, Madame was still worried that what the venerable Beichen had said was nonsense. Now, gathered together, it should not be false, right? Thinking up to here, Su Zian raised a smug eyebrow at Madame Su. Madame Su pursed her lips and smiled, secretly nodding. The husband and wife pair made eyes with each other under the gazes of everyone present. All of this was seen by Nangong Luyun. Nangong Luyun frowned with some annoyance. Rumor has it that the natural disposition of the great general that protected the nation was solemn, dignified, and cold. Who could have anticipated that he would be this frivolous? In addition, there was that Su Qing something. One heard that she was very noble and coldly elegant. However, just now from what he saw, how was she different from those starry-eyed, infatuated, idiotic women that were outside? Chapter 313. Returning to Su Manor, 13. Su Jingyu took note of His Highness Prince Jin's expression and immediately gave off a distinct coughing sound in an attempt to divert his attention. Your Highness Prince Jin is too polite. You bringing along these gifts is enough even as a bride's gift. If other people do not know, they would think you came to our home to bring the betrothal gifts. Ha ha ha. Su Jingyu saw that His Highness Prince Jin promptly stared at him unblinkingly. All of a sudden, he felt a little awkward and gave a forced smile. Once he finished speaking, he became aware that his words were simply too rash. Who was His Highness Prince Jin? Was his affair something he could just randomly say? Having thought of this, Su Jingyu immediately quivered from head to toe in fear. He had a terrified expression at once, nearly kneeling down. Who would have imagined that once Nangong Luyun heard it, not only was he not displeased, on the contrary, his dark red lips tilted up, carrying a touch of a smile. It also had a bit of hidden bitterness as it released a sigh. Those words you said, this king likes to hear. Only, it's a pity that even if this king brought over a mountain of gold and silver as bridal gifts, that certain person would also not agree. His Luo girl was indeed very hard to pursue. He also didn't know how far he still had to walk on this road to chase after his wife before he could hug a beautiful wife. Sometimes, when he thought about this, he truly wished he could just kidnap her to his home and let it be. Su Jingyu never expected that His Highness Prince Jin would let out such a sigh. Immediately, he started to plan and thought deeply. Soon after, he thought he understood. He smiled very amusingly. Your Highness, you are thinking too much. On this earth, how can there be a person who won't agree to marrying you? Qing'er, what do you say? Originally, because of the sentence about bridal gifts from just a moment ago, Su Qing's state of mind was disordered. Then, encountering Su Jingyu's question, her eyes dropped low from shy modesty. Her voice was soft as mosquito. Yes, I agree. Saying this, a cloud of red flew onto her face. Both hands nervously crossed and uncrossed. She bashfully lowered her head, simply not daring to raise her head. Once Su Qing said these words, Su Zian and the other members were immediately so happy that they nearly flew up, especially Su Zian. He burst into loud, happy laughter. He laughed to his heart's content. His Highness Prince Jin took a fancy to his Qing'er. Surely very quickly, she would become Princess Jin. It looked like very quickly, his position would shift up once more. He was indeed very happy. Nangong Liuyun's hearing ability was really good. No matter how soft Su Qing said it, it was impossible for him not to hear. Only, he was somewhat unclear why this young lady would abruptly have a brain seizure to speak out to agree or not agree with these words. It was not like the person he wanted to marry was her. Did the brains of everyone in Su Manor seized up? Could it be that aside from his Luo girl, there wasn't another normal person? He was still a great general that protected the nation. How could a person with brain seizure protect the country? Looked like this position must be moved around a little. Nangong Luyun, having waited, had become a little impatient. He had always handled matters as he pleased, absolutely unrestrained. Today, him being able to restrain his temper to wait in Su Manor's reception hall was all because of his Luo girl. Because these were the people from her family, therefore, his temper was able to endure enough for him to sit there peacefully. However, having waited for a while and still not seeing his Luo girl despite all this waiting, Nangong Luyun was suddenly annoyed. His pair of remote and cold phoenix eyes swept towards Su Zian. General Su, where is the person this king wanted to see? Why is she still not here yet? Once these words were spoken, Su Zian's joyful laughter suddenly came to an end. He somewhat bewilderedly looked at His Highness Prince Jean. After a long time, he finally came to his senses. Your Highness, isn't Qing'er already standing in front of you? Nangong Liuyun's sword-like eyebrows nodded coldly, letting out a cold snort in displeasure. Qing'er? What kind of thing is it? Does it have any relation to the person this king wanted to see? Once these words were spoken, immediately, all the people present became cold and respectful. Everyone inhaled a mouthful of cold air. Without exception, they all stared blankly at Nangong Luyun with a disbelieving, stupefied expression. Chapter 314. Returning to Su Manor, 14. However, in a split second, Su Qing's complexion became deathly white. Wherefore would she still have a trace of bashfulness? That pair of clear, cold, and beautiful eyes were opened wide, rigidly staring at His Highness Prince Jean. Her eyes were full of disbelief. What are you saying? The person your highness wanted to see, isn't it Qing'er? The corner of Su Zian's mouth stiffened, muttering the words. He felt his own brain going completely blank. He was as stiff as an iron rod, simply incapable of thinking anymore. Nangong Luyun harshly tossed the teacup onto the table. With a frown, he coldly said, "This king doesn't care about your Qing'er or Zhui'er one. Do you still remember what this king said before? Your Highness said, you should call your daughter to come over," Su Zian rigidly recalled. Only he found that his brain's reaction was very slow. It was wooden and blank. In that case, what was it that you did? Nangong Luyun impatiently berated. The person this king wanted to see is a certain young lady in your home. You called over a random, starry-eyed, infatuated flower to deal with this king? Su Zian, you have great courage. Disordered, random, flower, starry-eyed, infatuated? Su Qing's normally pale face immediately became so white as to lack all color. Her body was as stiff as iron, like a wooden board sticking out from a pile, unmoving. His Highness Prince Jean had actually said she was starry-eyed and infatuated. Starry-eyed and infatuated. These two words circled around in Su Qing's mind uninterrupted. They expanded, then magnified endlessly, and again they enlarged. Su Jingyu and Madame Su were also stupefied. They foolishly and blankly stared at His Highness Prince Jean. Seeing His Highness's anger, even a trace of chill appeared in their hearts. Su Jingyu summoned up his courage and trembled uncontrollably as he asked, Your Highness, isn't Qing'er the person you wanted to see? Aren't you and Qing'er? Are we what? A frosty light flashed through Nangong Liuyun's eyes. Su Jingyu nervously swallowed some saliva. At last summoning his courage, he asked in a whisper, The person you want to marry, could it be she isn't Qing'er? Having heard what was said, Nangong Luyun at first was startled, then he was once again irritated. With a ridiculing and sarcastic manner, he pointed at Su Qing. saying in genuine disbelief, "Are you all insane? Bringing this kind of starry-eyed, infatuated idiot to be placed on equal terms with this king? In you people's eyes, this king is just like a blind person? Su Zian, you have great courage." Having heard these words, Su Zian didn't have the mind to bother with other stuff, as he immediately kneeled in fear and trepidation. "Your Highness, please calm down. Your Highness, please calm down. It was all because this useless person is ignorant." Having heard some nonsense from outside, and just took it as truth. "I hope your Highness will be magnanimous. You must by all means calm down." Momentarily, Su Qing's entire person was stupefied. It was said that just a moment ago she still had a little delusion regarding His Highness Prince Jean. Then now, her beautiful dream was thoroughly smashed into pieces. Moreover, it would never be put back together. She thought it over countless times. No matter what, she could not imagine that in His Highness Prince Jin's eyes, unexpectedly, she was this kind of person. Starry-eyed, infatuated, idiot, a waste. Weren't these labels belonging exclusively to Su Luo? How did it get stuck onto her body? Su Qing wanted to cry, but found her own brain dazed and stunned. Not even one tear would fall out. She merely felt stupid and stood there blankly. The surrounding atmosphere made her feel suffocated. It was so oppressive that she nearly fainted. She stupidly stared at His Highness Prince Jean, whereas the receiving party regarded her as a pair of worn-out shoes. In his eyes, she was actually nothing. But just a moment ago, she still was hoping that this callous, fickle man would love her at first sight. Haha, she really was too stupid and had too high an opinion of herself. This kind of man, why would he stop and stay because of a woman? How could it be possible? Nangong Luyun stingily didn't even glance at Su Qing. His indifferent expression swept towards Su Zian. 1. Qinger or Zhuir is a play on words. Qing in Chinese is clear while Zhua is Chinese for turbid/muddy. Chapter 315. Returning to Su Manor, 15. This glance, although cursory, yet it frightened Su Zian's heart and made him jumpy beyond flustered. Su Zian urgently bellowed at Su Jingyu in fury. "Why are you still staring blankly? Go and fetch all of your younger sisters now without delay." Su Jingyu had a somewhat stupefied look with a complicated expression. He silently took a quick glance at His Highness Prince Jean, lowering his voice to nervously ask, "Who should I fetch?" "All of them." Su Zian saw His Highness Prince Jean sipped a mouthful of tea with his indifferent expression. This made his heart all the more terrified. God knows once this Yama, King of Hell, was annoyed and provoked, what kind of crazy stuff he would do. Su Jingyu muttered apprehensively to himself, "Is this necessary? Isn't just asking fifth younger sister to come fine?" In any case, Su Wan was already a fallen woman and Su Luo was basically a good-for-nothing. What's the point of asking these two to come? Su Zian saw His Highness Prince Jean frown, and he panicked. The palm of his hand hit towards Su Jingyu's forehead, while angrily roaring, "I ordered you to go, so you should quickly scram for your daddy." While speaking, Su Zian heavily kicked towards Su Jingyu's ass and directly kicked him out the door. Su Jingyu massaged his thoroughly aching buttocks. He had a gloomy and malicious expression, extremely unhappy, but regardless of his mood, His Highness Prince Jean was still sitting in the reception hall. None of them could afford to offend him. If they caused His Highness Prince Jean to be unhappy, Su Manor's entire residence would be wiped out to disappear in the vastness of history. This was also not something that was hard to imagine. After all, it wasn't like His Highness Prince Jean hadn't done something like this before. Alas, the pitiful second younger sister, heartfeltly studying for such a long time. In the end, it was all wasted effort. Ultimately, she still let fifth younger sister take the cheap advantage, right? Only the fifth younger sister, Su Jingyu, was once again tangled. Fifth younger sister and the crown prince already had a vague relationship. Father and the emperor also already reached an understanding. Within the next few days, the imperial edict would arrive to grant them the marriage. Now, His Highness Prince Jean came to make this move, catching them completely unprepared. This also made it difficult for them to choose. In addition, there was still His Highness the Crown Prince. Su Jingyu fidgeted as he kneaded his throbbing and jumping temple. Even though he himself felt that His Highness Prince Jean was someone the Crown Prince was unable to reach, however on the surface, he was clearly still a man on the Crown Prince's side. The Crown Prince also hated His Highness Prince Jean, to the point of gnashing his teeth. He and His Highness Prince Jean could not coexist. This point was one he understood clearly better than anybody. However now, this situation, just thinking about it would give anyone a headache. At once, Su Jingyu subconsciously determined that the person His Highness Prince Jean wanted to see was Su Shi. Because from his point of view, Su Wan's body was already ruined. In this lifetime, it was impossible for her to turn it around. As for Su Luo, she was simply an idiotic good-for-nothing. Even he wouldn't glance at her, let alone His Highness Prince Jin's type of god from the 9th layer of heaven, okay? If he was to bring Su Luo in front of His Highness Prince Jean, that would be dirtying His Highness's eyes. However, even though Su Jingyu was very unwilling to ask Su Luo, while following Su Xian's command from before, he had no choice but to go and ask. Consequently, he instructed 2 servants to go and invite Su Wan and Su Luo. He personally strolled towards the courtyard Su Shi resided in. Bang! The crisp sound of porcelain hitting the ground echoed within the room. Again, it was followed by the sharply clear, crackling and rattling sounds of things smashing to the ground. Hearing it made a person's heart panic and body jump in fright. Su Jingyu's eyebrow nodded slightly. He had an annoyed expression, so with quick steps, he walked inside. When he saw the scene inside, his sword-like eyebrows wrinkled into the Chinese character. Now on the ground inside the room were broken pieces and fragments of porcelain. Every kind of thing that could be smashed was all smashed. Even the table, chairs, and furniture were all shattered into pieces. It almost looked like it had gone through a large earthquake. Su Shi, why are you again throwing a fit of anger? Su Jingyu glared at Su Shi with extreme displeasure. Chapter 316. Returning to Su Manor, 16. Now, the whole family was messed with by His Highness Prince Jean until they were in terrible shape, and she was still here smashing antique and chinaware to vent her feelings. What did you call this? Su Shi turned her head around to glare hatefully at Su Jingyu. She fumingly said, "You, leave me alone. You go and kiss up to second older sister. She will be flying up to the top branch in the position of the phoenix. All of you should go fawn up to her. That will be good. Why come to look for me?" Su Shi was pampered and spoiled since childhood by Madame Su and other enabler. She had always been unable to hold back her words. All of her emotions would be displayed on her face. Merely hearing her words, Su Jingyu immediately understood. It turned out this girl was drinking Chinger's vinegar. Unfortunately, this girl didn't realize how difficult Chinger's situation was right now. Su Jingyu, with both arms crossed, coldly cast a glance at Su Shi. She is your second older sister. If she can be Princess Jean, our entire family will rise along with her like the tides. Besides, aren't you and the Crown Prince exchanging flirting glances? You can become the Crown Prince's imperial concubine and still not content? Before His Highness Prince Jean appeared, the Crown Prince is not bad, but now, how can the Crown Prince compare to His Highness Prince Jean? Can he? Older brother, you use your own conscience and speak. Can he? Su Shi was very forceful, drawing closer step by step, a pair of almond-shaped eyes glaring until they was huge. Both of her cheeks were puffed up, giving off a panting with rage appearance. You are such a bad girl. Indeed, really crafty and unruly. Su Jingyu poked her forehead and took her hand. All right, come walk with older brother. Where to? Su Shi clearly was unhappy. With one move she shook off his hand. Reception hall. A certain someone wants to see you. Su Jingyu's smile was somewhat enigmatic. Not going. Sushi fumingly sat on the headboard of her bed, while hugging the bed's pillar with her head leaning on it. I'm not going. Not happy going. Not willing to go. Who likes it is who should go. Oh, really not going? Su Jingyu felt that teasing this little girl was extremely amusing. The messy chaos in his heart was swept clean. In any case, whether it was Qinger or Xier, both of them were his younger sisters. Moreover, both of them liked His Highness Prince Jean. It was better that he as their older brother to not control so much. Yeah, don't want to go. Older brother, go quickly, quickly go. Just seeing you irritates me. Sushi impatiently waved her hand. Su Jingyu lifted his foot and was just about to leave. When he walked to the doorway, he unhurriedly gave a sigh. Alas, His Highness Prince Jean doesn't want such an outstanding Qinger. How could he have fallen for you? Such a bad girl. Really incomprehensible for people. Fine, since you won't go. Sushi immediately jumped up about a meter high, her head knocked against the bed pillar. It hurt so much that tears were about to come out. However, she simply did not have the time to deal with the pain. She threw herself directly towards Su Jingyu. Her face was so excited that the muscles were trembling. Older brother. What did you say just now? What was it that you said? Nothing. I didn't say anything. Su Jingyu spread out both hands and innocently shrugged his shoulders. Older brother. Both of Su Shi's hands clutched towards Su Jingyu's neck. She looked fierce and feigning anger, said, quickly speak, quickly speak. You want me to go mad from being so worked up? Su Jingyu somewhat helplessly let out a sigh. How could His Highness Prince Jean have such great charisma and allure? These girls from his family, every day, each and every one of them was aloof, icily arrogant, high and mighty to an extreme. They wouldn't by anyone's account, but once they come across His Highness Prince Jean, every single one of them would curl up like a little kitten that was exceedingly cute and well-behaved. Sure enough, that phrase was said correctly. Seeing His Highness Prince Jean, they would avoid previously arranged marriages. In fact, it wasn't only these girls, even father, mother, and including him, would also not dare to breathe heavily in front of His Highness Prince Jean, right? It was clear, there was a type of people, at birth, their body had a kind of charisma that would make people acknowledge and serve them. Chapter 317. Returning to Sioux Manor, 17, Older Brother. If you don't tell me, then I'll choke you to death. Su Shi's face was sullen, glaring very fiercely at Su Jingyu. She was so anxious that black smoke was nearly coming out of her forehead. Su Jingyu helplessly let out a sigh. Okay, older brother won't tease you anymore. His Highness Prince Jean really didn't fall for Qinger. Everything from before was a misunderstanding. But the only thing that is certain is that His Highness Prince Jean really took a fancy to a young lady from our residence. Every sentence Su Jingyu said, the light in Su Shi's eyes would shine a little more. She was so excited that her little face was the crimson color of blood. Her lips were trembling non-stop. Su Jingyu spoilingly and indulgently rubbed her head. He continued to speak. You tell me, in our home apart, from Qinger and you, who else is there? That is to say, since Qinger has already been eliminated, therefore the only possibility is you. Now do you understand? Su Shi was dumbfounded. She was stupefied for a long time before regaining her senses. The corner of her mouth cracked open into a smile. Her smile got larger and larger, more and more brilliant. It appeared as if she was so happy she became an idiot. Older brother, are you telling the truth? Prince Jean really fell for me? He really wants me to become Princess Jean? Oh heavens! Right now, Su Shi's heart was bursting in joy. She felt that the entire sky was sunny and cloudless. The whole world all of a sudden became beautiful. Of course, apart from you, who else is there? Su Jingyu said, full of zest. As far as he was concerned, these two younger sisters, no matter who became Princess Jean, he would receive the same benefit. Oh heavens! Oh heavens, the gods are too good to me, right? Oh heavens. Sushi happily laughed in elation. She continuously twirled around in circles inside her room, so excited that she nearly went insane. Ouch! All of a sudden, a burst of miserable yell came from Sushi's mouth. Right after, her whole body twisted and fell to the ground. The ground was covered in broken pieces and fragments of chinaware she had thrown. Immediately, her entire butt was pricked full of numerous cuts, fresh blood seeping out. Little Su Jingyu, with an aching heart, pulled her up with a solemn expression as he scolded her. You, this girl, how can you be so careless? Does it hurt? Sushi was still smiling. She was smiling and grinning from ear to ear. She hurriedly waved her hand and said, Doesn't hurt, doesn't hurt, it didn't hurt a bit. You, this girl, kept smiling until you were stupid. Su Jingyu exasperatedly poked at her forehead. He, Sushi, with one hand, pushed Su Jingyu away and turned around to immediately run towards the outside door. Older brother, I'm going to go see His Highness Prince Jean. Take your time. Hey little wait for me. Su Jingyu called out loudly. However, before waiting for him to turn around, even the shadow of Sushi's figure was already gone. Su Jingyu could only helplessly shake his head. Seeing Sushi looking like this, Su Jingyu secretly sighed in his heart. His Highness Prince Jean had rejected Qinger, not sure if this was a good thing or not. Speaking of Sushi, she ran so fast. She was like a wisp of smoke and fast as lightning as she rushed towards the reception hall. Standing outside of the door, Sushi very firmly inhaled a breath of air. She calmed down her excited frame of mind. Only then did she purse her lips and cover up the happy expression at the corner of her eye, and strolled right in. When Su Zian and Madame Su saw Sushi enter, their hearts were especially complicated. Both of them gazed towards Sushi with a troubled, heart-aching expression. Su Qing's pair of beautiful eyes rigidly glared at the approaching Sushi, who was swaying gently with a womanly grace. That pair of eyes was as cold as a millennium-old block of ice, and also like 1,000 layers of the edges of icy blades. If her gaze could kill people, the Sushi right now would have already died 1,000,000 times. Taking note of Su Qing's hateful and jealous gaze, Sushi raised an eyebrow and slanted her a glance. Humph, since childhood, second older sister's gift, compared to hers, was always better. Even more, at such a young age, she had also paid her respects to a great teacher. If she hadn't returned, then it was tolerable, but once she returned, she immediately snatched away all the attention and the gazes that belonged to her. She still believed that she was a real peacock spreading its tail, and that everyone would like her. Chapter 318. Returning to Su Manor, 18. Humph. Since His Highness Prince Jean liked her, let her be jealous. Su Shi, who had always secretly hated Su Qing, now seemed to have made a comeback. She completely ignored Su Qing's feelings. On the contrary, the more painful it was for her, the more comfortable Su Shi's heart would be. Originally, a pair of blood sisters from the same father and mother normally was also on the same page in a very close relationship. However, because of one guy, animosity was born in the hearts of this pair of sisters. Sushi swayed gently with glowing beauty as she moved in front of Prince Jean and made her salutations cutely. Nangong Luyun indifferently continued to drink his tea, basically giving no indication that he even noticed her. Sushi's heart became anxious. Didn't older brother say His Highness Prince Jean was interested in her? How could he have this kind of attitude? Could it be that older brother had guessed wrong? No, it's not like this. It absolutely could not be like this. His Highness Prince Jean belonged to her. Sushi hastened to squeeze out a trace of a smile on her stiff face. She cutely and kitten-like sashayed to in front of His Highness Prince Jean. She reached out her slender pale hand, wanting to hold His Highness Prince Jin's hand. However, before you know it, one could only see the flash of a shadow and Sushi's figure was already hit all the way out the door. After a long while, a distant miserable shriek of pain could be heard from outside. Su Zian, Madame Su, Su Jingyu, and also Su Qing, now, all of their eyes were opened very wide. They all stared in shock at that figure that was sent flying, and they were speechless for a very long time. Madame Su was very worried about the condition of Su Shi's injury. However, with His Highness Prince Jin present, everyone in the reception hall was enveloped in his chi field. She basically wouldn't even dare to breathe loudly, not to mention even leaving here halfway through. But His Highness Prince Jin he unexpectedly hit Su Shi, directly sending her flying out. This simply was. Yet, Nangong Luyuan was still unperturbed without a ripple and took another sip of tea. His tone was like the ice in a deep pool, ice cold to the bone. Su Zian, you birthed a good daughter, ah. Su Zian's heart suddenly sank to the ground. He knew that this enigmatic and impossible to predict His Highness Prince Jin, in front of his eyes, was already getting a little angry. Only, no matter what, he couldn't guess right. His Highness Prince Jin descended on Su Manor and kept on saying he wanted to see Su Zian's daughter. But Qing'er was refused. Shi'er was sent flying in the end. Who was it he wanted to see? Was giving a hint too much to ask? Su Zian was simply about to be overwrought from being pressed too hard. Your Highness, are you perhaps mistaken? Su Zian forced himself to step forward to reply. Since Qing'er and Shi'er both are not the person you wanted to find, then that young lady you are looking for definitely is not in my home. Still hope that your Highness Prince Jin investigates it thoroughly. Nangong Luyuan leisurely took a sip of tea. In a calm and composed manner, he spoke, Su Zian, are you blaming this king for coming to your residence to make trouble without reason? His tone was like a soothing cloud and a gentle wind, downplaying every word, but for Su Zian's ears which heard these words, it seemed like a scorching, thunderous lightning that was violently exploding in his mind. Su Zian knew that His Highness Prince Jin was displeased. However, these words of his were obviously spoken with good intentions. Why was it that His Highness still wasn't happy? This left him at a total loss. The pitiful him simply did not know. Because he had inadvertently eliminated Su Luo, he was therefore confronted with a man who was now offended on Su Luo's behalf because he always became narrow-minded when it came to Su Luo. Su Zian hurriedly tried to explain himself. Your Highness, this person really isn't trying to find fault with you. Rather, to tell you the truth, this person really only has these two daughters and won't ever be able to find the person you are looking for. Nangong Luyuan still gracefully sat there drinking tea. A chilliness flashed through his black eyes. He said a sentence with a tone that was light as a feather. Su Zian, ah, Su Zian, you, such a person, does not know when you are well off. This lifetime, I'm afraid you will carry a lifelong regret. Chapter 319. Returning to Su Manor, 19. Su Zian completely did not understand the meaning in the sentence that His Highness Prince Jin just said. He looked at Nangong Luyuan with a perplexed expression, hoping that Prince Jin would say something to make it clearer. Nangong Luyuan peacefully sat there. The joint in his fingers could be seen as he lightly pushed away the floating tea leaves inside the teacup with the lid. His eyes dropped slightly contentedly, saying, You really just gave birth to only these two daughters that are wastes? Nangong Luyuan's tone, which was light as a feather, even carried a touch of smile. But in Su Zian's ears, when he heard these words, it made his soul shudder from the frost. Prince Jin called Su Qing and Su Shi wastes. This point, Su Zian was unable to refute, because in front of Prince Jin's extraordinary and unsurpassed gifted genius, which person wasn't a waste? Only, what was the meaning of Prince Jin's words? Could it be he still had a worthy daughter he could bring out? Su Wan was already ruined. In this lifetime she could change her fortune. As for Su Luo, don't know why all of a sudden the scene of Su Wan tattletaling to him on that day appeared in Su Zian's mind. That day, Su Wan ran over to his study to look for him, repeatedly stating that Su Luo escaped and run away from home, that she went together with His Highness Prince Jean to Sunset Mountain Range together. Later, because of insufficient proof, it resulted in him leaving this matter unsettled. But now, suddenly, a thin line of perspiration appeared on Su Xian's forehead. Could it be that the person His Highness Prince Jean was looking for had always been Su Luo, and not Qinger or Sheer? No way, no way, a giant mistake. Based on Qinger and Sheers, this kind of genius, also being called wastes by His Highness Prince Jean, Su Luo, that kind of genuine good-for-nothing, how could she enter His Highness Prince Jin's eyes? This was simply a fantasy story like the Arabian Nights, absolutely impossible, simply absurd. However, His Highness Prince Jean was overbearing with an expression that said that if he didn't hand over the person, then he would massacre everyone in Su Manor. This attitude left Su Xian with no choice but to slant a meaningful glance towards Su Jingyu. Didn't I tell you to go call over your younger sisters? Where's Luo? Where's Wanner? No matter what, get those two girls to come over and let His Highness Prince Jean meet them. At that time, if he didn't like them, then wouldn't this matter be unrelated to Su Manor? Then, he would be able to send off this Azura from hell, right? Today, Su Jingyu had suffered from a lot of very big shocks. First, he was certain Su Qing could become Princess Jean, but who knew that this dream would be shattered? Then, he was certain she could become Princess Jean. The result was once again that his hopes and efforts came to nothing. Instead, Shi was mercilessly thrown out. Now he was already stupefied, completely unable to understand the way that this enigmatic His Highness Prince Jean thought. Hearing Su Xian's loud scolding voice, Su Jingyu momentarily returned to his senses and stammeringly said, "Third younger sister and fourth younger sister's place, that place, I was afraid there wasn't enough time. So I ordered some servants to go and inform them. How about I go there at once?" Just at this time, the fragmented sounds of footsteps could be heard from outside. Everyone looked towards the doorway. Under the escort of a servant girl, Su Wan, who was in poor health, was helped inside. In the split second when everyone saw her, they couldn't help but to stare with their eyes wide open. Then, they turned their eyes away. In merely a very short time, Su Wan's entire person had completely changed. Before, her body was slim and graceful like the morning dew. Although one could not say she was at the peak, but she was also a rare beauty. However now, her entire person was extremely obese. Compared to her past look, it was like she had plumped up a full circle. While she was walking, the fat on her whole body was quivering. Oh heavens, was this still that slender and graceful Su Wan? The her now was basically a fat pig. It simply made people feel this scene was too pitiful to behold. Su Xian furtively looked at that aloof and remote His Highness Prince Jean. His Highness Prince Jean was as before, calmly drinking his tea. That indifferent appearance seemed to say that the person he wanted to find was obviously not Su Wan. Chapter 320. Returning to Su Manor, 20. Also, the Su Wan who looked like a fat pig now. How could she be the person His Highness Prince Jean was looking for? If His Highness Prince Jean really selected this kind of Su Wan, then it simply was that his eyes were blind. Su Xian disdainfully waved his hand. Carry her away now without delay. Looking at her is bad luck. Daddy, immediately, tears rolled out of Su Wan's eyes. She threw off the servant girl's hand and she launched over to hug Su Xian's thigh. Daddy, save me, Daddy every day. This daughter would only drink water, but don't know why this daughter would become this fat. Quickly, you should think of a way to save this daughter. Daddy, Su Wan really couldn't understand. She simply did not eat many meals. Yet how could this be the result? How could she change into the kind of appearance she had right now? Now, with great difficulty, she could see her father to allow her see the sky again. How could she lose this opportunity? Otherwise, she really would be ruined for this lifetime. Su Xian's expression was uncertain. With a frown, he said, His Highness Prince Jean is here. You give me to be quiet. People come, bring her away. Since she was not the person His Highness was looking for, he naturally would not be polite. What's even more, Su Wan, recalling the things he saw in that large fire from back then, he wished he could directly choke this daughter that disgraced him to death and forget about it. Su Wan, with great difficulty, was able to be released. Why would she give up so easily? One could only see her firmly hugging onto Su Zian's thigh. Hearing that His Highness Prince Jean was here, she turned around and complained tearfully towards Prince Jean, saying, "Your Highness, I beseech you to persuade my respectable father to invite an apothecary back to treat me. I really can't stand it anymore. I beg you." Nangong Luyuan finally put down his teacup with a smile that was not quite a smile as he raised an eyebrow. "This person is?" Su Zian forced a smile and said, "Incurring your Highness's ridicule, this person is Su Wan, my third daughter. Only a few days ago, a little matter occurred, therefore. People come, hurry and bring third miss away." Under Su Zian's command, immediately, a group of extremely fierce and ugly servants approached. Holding onto Su Wan's hands and legs, they were just about to tow her away. Su Manor's third miss. All of a sudden, a dark intent flashed through Nangong Liuyun's mind. He unhurriedly lifted his hand. Wait, such a soft, short sentence made these monster-like servants pause. They released Su Wan, doubtfully looking towards His Highness Prince Jean. After Su Wan broke away from the control of those people, she knew even her father was also unreliable. Consequently, she staggered along, throwing herself towards Nangong Luyun, crawling and groveling on the ground. Choking with sobs, she said, "Your Highness, save me. I beg your Highness to save me now." All the important people seeing this was struck dumb. Could it be that His Highness Prince Jean really had interest in this fallen woman, Su Wan, that was as fat as a pig? If this matter was true, then His Highness Prince Jin's taste was rather too extreme, too heavy, right? Now everyone's gaze was focused on Nangong Liuyun's face, unblinkingly looking at him, deeply afraid of missing a trace of information. Nangong Luyun faintly looked at Su Wan. His pair of beautiful eyes concealed wickedness and charm. "Oh, someone wants to harm you?" "Yes. Someone put poison in my food, otherwise, I absolutely would not become this fat within a few days. Your Highness, I beg you to say a few good words for me to my father. A few words from you is more powerful than the 1,000 words I would say." Su Wan's tears were packed, crying like the rain on pear flowers. Only, it was now a pity you couldn't make out a trace of beauty, matched to that extremely fat body. The more you looked, the more it would spoil a person's appetite. Contrary to what one might expect, His Highness Prince Jean was actually not scornful. Unexpectedly, he actually smiled. Nangong Liuyun's jointed finger at once fastened onto the loop on the armrest of the chair. He faintly smiled and raised an eyebrow. "Maybe you made a mistake in some matters and received the proper punishment, right?" Chapter 321. Returning to Su Manor, 21. No, not possible. Suddenly it seemed as if Su Wan had thought of something, and immediately, a thread of maliciousness flashed within her eyes. "It's Su Luo, for sure. It is that little slut who poisoned me. Besides her, there's no one else." When talking about hate, in this lifetime, the person Su Wan hated the most precisely was Su Luo. In that moment, Nangong Liuyun's eyes were narrowed like a sharp blade. Immediately, the surrounding atmosphere seemed to have condensed into frost. A gust of cold air began to surge up from the soles of all of their feet. What's going on? At this moment, everybody in the reception hall was looking at each other in dismay. Why was it that all of a sudden, within the reception hall, the temperature seemed to have dropped a lot? It was a whiff of killing intent that was like a double-edged sword suspended over the top of their heads, making them feel as if they were all on tenterhooks. Nangong Luyun was still gracefully sitting there as before, with a tone that was as light as a feather carrying a trace of his amiable manner. "You said it is? Su Luo?" His voice was gentle and languid, extremely pleasant to hear and had a nobleness that was hard to reach. Only, it was just that people familiar with him knew His Highness Prince Jean was about to start a carnage full of bloodletting. Yes, it is definitely her. At that time, she harmed me by destroying my reputation. Now, she still poisoned me until I became fat like this. Such a cruel heart and a very malicious woman. Suwon was so furious that it made her look sinister and nearly insane. Nangong Luyun suddenly smiled. That smiling expression was even more gorgeous and resplendent than the cherry blossoms in March. He let out a faint sound in agreement and pondered with his chin in his hand. He unhurriedly and deliberately said, "Indeed, as fat as a pig." "Oh, not so. Wouldn't this appearance be an insult to pigs?" Once these words were spoke, Suwon was immediately startled. She stupidly gazed at His Highness Prince Jean and was somewhat uncertain whether this person, the rumored legendary omnipotent His Highness Prince Jean, was standing on her side or not. The words he said were truly cutting, not sparing her feelings even the littlest bit. Nangong Luyun leisurely fished out a single brown-colored medicinal pill and shook it in front of Suwon. "Anyway, isn't it just the condition of getting fat, the medicinal pill to detoxify it? This king has it right here, what?" Immediately, Suwon's pair of eyes gave off excited lights of extraordinary splendor. She had a very surprised and ecstatic expression as she stared at that piece of detoxifying medicinal pill. She looked like a dog entirely fixated on a bone, with an unusually devout manner. This is the exact antidote?" Suwon was so moved that her lips were trembling. Nangong Liuyun's tone was very soft and gentle, also carrying a touch of smile. "That's right. This is the exact antidote. It's just that after eating it, there is a very minor side effect." "What side effects?" Suwon, having been mesmerized by the efficacy of this medicinal pill, totally did not notice the treacherous gleam that flashed through Nangong Liuyun's pair of ink-black eyes. "Only after using it will you know." Nangong Luyun drank a shallow mouthful of tea. His eyes had a smile that was not quite a smile expression, full of meaning that would make someone reel. His gaze was concealed, nefarious, and inscrutable. "No matter what the side effects are, I beseech your Highness Prince Jean to bestow this medicine. If it can truly remove this poison, in the future, Suwon would do whatever and work extremely hard to repay your Highness." Suwon's face was resolute. Both of her hands were firmly clenched into fists. This was her last chance, moreover, if she was able to stay by His Highness's side. She would simply be flying to the top of the tree and transforming into a phoenix. The matter that made people feel strange was that the corner of Nangong Liuyun's mouth only hooked into an enigmatic, demonically charming smile. Without even haggling over the price, he tossed that medicinal pill to Suwon. Suwon took it. She didn't even use water and impatiently directly swallowed it in her excitement. Su Xian's group of people waited anxiously as they watched His Highness Prince Jean. No matter what, they couldn't understand why His Highness Prince Jean, with indeterminable mood swings, would treat Suwon so differently. Could it be that he truly fancied Suwon? But it always felt that somewhere was strange. Su Xian kneeled down with deep gratitude, said, "Your Highness's favor in bestowing the medicine, your favor is so great, that this person will remember for as long as I live." Chapter 322. Returning to Su Manor, 22. Nangong Luyun carelessly waved his hand, stopping Su Xian's false words of courtesy. A weird and sly smiling expression appeared on his mouth. "General Su really will remember this as long as he lives. It's just that words of thanks for this king are not necessary." Huh. Su Xian was even more confused in the end. What was His Highness Prince Jean playing at? But speaking of Suwon, once she ate the medicinal pill, afterwards, the effect of the drug very quickly appeared. The body that was originally as fat as a pig became like a punctured balloon. In front of their eyes, it very quickly slimmed down. In less than a quarter of an hour, the fat across her whole face and all over her body, without exception, actually disappeared without a trace. Once again, she regained the beautiful, slender body from before. Unexpectedly, the skin on her face was even better than before, exquisite and glossy. Her skin was like amber. Within the reception hall, everyone was watching this scene with a mystified expression. They were speechless from amazement. His Highness Prince Jean had carried this medicinal pill on his body, and also just gave such a treasure of a medicinal pill to Su Wan. Then, Su Wan was the person His Highness was looking for? A complicated emotion flitted across Su Xian's heart. If he knew that the person His Highness fancied was Su Wan before, no matter what, he would not treat her like this. Only, now there should still be time to remedy it. Having thought up to here, Su Xian squeezed out a trace of a smiling expression on his rigid face. Smiling towards Su Wan, he said, "Why haven't you quickly gone to thank His Highness? If His Highness hadn't bestowed the medicine, the rest of your life would have been ruined. Yes, Wanner, from now on, you should properly follow His Highness. You are not allowed to be mischievous again." The corner of Madame Su's mouth squeezed out a stiff smile. Her smile was very unnatural. Su Jingyu also gave a forced smile and stepped forward to curry favor. "Third younger sister, in the future when you are living a good life, don't forget your older brother." Su Wan arrogantly swept them a glance. These people, when she was down and out, they kept hitting her when she was down. They were even wishing that she could have died earlier. Now that they knew His Highness adored her, each and every one of them actually came over to fawn on her. Humph! They thought that she could still forgive them? Su Wan haughtily raised her chin, and with a few steps, she walked to Nangong Liuyun's side. Then, she said in a cute and clever voice, "Father, daughter is already His Highness's people. From now on, matters in Su Manor doesn't have the least bit of relation to me." No matter what, Su Xian also did not expect for her to say this kind of stuff in front of everyone. Originally, he thought that although Su Wan would have some resentment in her heart, still, she had been brought up in Su Manor for more than 10 years, after all. Overall, she should have some feelings, but he never thought she would repay with such ingratitude. Su Xian's expression, in a split second, had threads of anger. "Wanner, what are you saying? Also, quickly come over here." "I won't," Su Wan said with the confidence of being right, and stood by Nangong Liuyun's side. She arrogantly and bossily glared at these people that had once turned their backs on her. A malicious light appeared in her eyes. What made people baffled was that regardless of what disturbance occurred in his surroundings, Nangong Liyun only indifferently sipped his tea, completely lacking any interest in interfering. Was he indulging Su Wan? Or simply that he couldn't be bothered enough to care? Because they couldn't grasp His Highness Prince Jin's attitude, therefore, Su Xian's heart had some misgivings, so he wouldn't dare to go up and forcefully pull Su Wan. His face blackened, but he could only furiously yell, "Su Wan, don't forget that no matter what, your last name is still Su." Su Wan saw that just now, when she said she was His Highness Prince Jin's person, this sentence, His Highness Prince Jin did not refute it. This gave her inexhaustible confidence and faith. One could see her sneer grimly repeatedly. "Last name is Su? You think I would really want such a nauseating family name that makes people sick? Su Wan, you are extremely daring. Don't tell me you are not afraid of being disciplined by the family ancestors?" Su Jingyu didn't expect that once Su Wan got power, she would immediately not recognize people. Thus, with a cold face and a furious tone, he yelled, Chapter 323, Returning to Su Manor, 23, Disciplined by the Family Ancestors? Ha ha ha, what laughable discipline by family ancestors. When I was suffering all kinds of torment, where was that ancestor? And where were all of you? Each and every one of you observed coldly like bystanders, throwing rocks at me who was down, wishing that I would drop dead. Since it is like this, Su Wan's gaze swept over all of their faces, and finally, her eyes flashed with a touch of resolute radiance. Since it is like this, then, not having the last name of Su is fine. From now on, I, Su Wan, does not have any relationship with your Su family. Don't ever come looking for me again. As soon as those words were out, Su Xian's complexion immediately darkened. Su Wan's aggressiveness caused Su Xian to feel that he had lost face. He, as a stately great general that protected the nation, was a person high above, with 10,000 people underneath. He was actually forced to these circumstances by a concubine's daughter? How could he have the prestige to stand facing his colleagues? How could he have the face to lead several tens of thousands of military forces? How could he have the prestige to be the master of the household? Su Xian pointed at Su Wan and angrily roared, "Good. These words were what you said. People come. Bring me the family genealogy record." Su Xian flung his sleeves while panting in rage. His complexion was ashen. Very quickly, a servant came holding the family genealogy records. Su Xian saw Su Wan with her chin lifted arrogantly, standing by His Highness Prince Jin's side. That unrepentant appearance of hers suddenly added more anger to his fury. "Su Wan, again. I will give you one last chance. You really want to separate yourself from the Su family?" Now, Madame Su's thoughts were very complicated. She also naturally wished to have Su Wan expelled very far away, so as to avoid seeing this annoyance. But her identity as the main mistress of Su Manor, when Su Xian was in a rage, in the capacity of the main mistress in charge of the family, she ought to come out and console everyone. Madame Su gently pulled at Su Xian's arm, with a soft voice, persuaded him by saying, "General, take a break. How great of a matter is expelling from the family? How could you make such a decision when in a rage? In the future, when you recall this, you certainly will regret it." Su Xian slowly released a breath, gloomily and coldly glared towards Su Wan. How could he want to expel Su Wan from the family? Let alone under the circumstances when His Highness Prince Jin's attitude was unclear? But Su Wan was really too offensive. Su Wan coldly smiled. "Madame Su, you also should stop faking your kindness. Who doesn't know that right now? You wish you could choke me to death. Ha ha ha, General Su. You should still strike off my name from the family genealogical records without delay. You still believe I really care for it." Su Wan kept on saying Madame Su and General Su, clearly acting as if they were not her father and mother. Suddenly, a mouthful of anger bubbled up in Su Xian. His pair of eyes was opened very wide, itching to choke Su Wan to death. "Good, very good. This was your own choice. In the future, if you were to die outside, Su Manor will absolutely not stick up for you." Su Xian, under a raging temper, with one grab, took the family genealogical records. On Su Wan's page, he crossed it off with dense brush strokes again and again, eliminating her name thoroughly from the family genealogical records. In the course of this process, Su Wan continued to lift her chin up in an icily arrogant manner. She cast sidelong glances at these people that had stepped on her with the soles of their feet. No, no, still missing one. Su Wan was very dissatisfied with this. Now, once again, the sounds of footsteps could be heard from outside. The servants lifted up the curtain, and people could only see a young woman with delicate and pretty features walk in from outside of the door. One only saw her body covered in a light green muslin dress that swept the floor like a circling butterfly. Her beautiful, jet-black hair was tied up with a light-colored ribbon. Her face was not covered with cosmetics, but was fresh, clean, and quite moving. Her pair of eyes was like water, with a clear and natural, light gaze. Her stride was steady with a natural and relaxed bearing as she slowly walked over. It gave people a kind of fresh, clean, and quick-witted impression that illuminated her brilliantly. This person was not an outsider. She was Su Luo. She saw everyone and her mouth burst open into a shallow, indifferent smile. Chapter 324. Returning to Su Manor, 24. Now, her bearing was natural and relaxed. Where was she still that cowering, good-for-nothing Su Luo? She had practically changed beyond recognition, as if she was reborn. When Nangong Luyun saw Su Luo, that pair of malicious eyes momentarily transformed. It was now intoxicating, full of tender sentiments and gleaming like rays reflecting off water. That smile could stir up and entice all living things. Originally, Su Luo didn't want to come since she never liked to participate in this kind of spectacle. However, hearing what the servant who was sent to invite her said about the events that occurred in the reception hall, she had no choice but to come. If she didn't come, who knew if Nangong Luyun would directly draw up an engagement contract with her cheap father and send her away with the agreement, okay? This kind of thing. She could only control it well if she was personally at the scene. Seeing Su Luo come over, the corner of Su Qing's mouth hooked up coldly. When Su Wan saw Su Luo, the hatred in her eyes was very obvious. Without waiting for others to speak, she suddenly took a big stride and rushed towards Su Luo. She raised her slapping palm high. "Slut, you still dare to come? I'll kill you." However, confronted with a first-rank Su Wan, Su Luo effortlessly and easily turned sideways and was able to avoid her. Still remember that the last time when she fought Su Wan, she didn't even have one iota of spirit power. But the her now is already a third rank. Really, after a lapse of 3 days, she made people sit up and take notice. Su Wan didn't expect that she couldn't even hit Su Luo, making her so angry that she stomped her foot. If you have the ability, then don't run. Today, I simply must kill you. Su Luo, with both hands holding her arms, sneered while casting her a sidelong glance. "Want to kill me? Just based on your skills?" Su Wan wanted to kill her now. That was basically a task that was impossible for her to accomplish. Unexpectedly, when Su Wan heard these words, she merely smiled coldly and said, "Su Luo, I already know you practiced martial arts. Now, I have revealed it through my test. You concealed it from everyone and secretly cultivated. In the end, what are you plotting?" Su Luo actually knew martial arts? Su Zian was immediately stupefied. Wasn't this girl a good-for-nothing? When she was at the spirit testing temple, didn't she test with not even a bit of spirit strength? How could she possibly cultivate then? But watching her avoid Su Wan's attack just a moment ago, she really did know martial arts. Moreover, her cultivation wasn't that low. In the end, what was going on? Su Zian was bewildered. Not only Su Zian, Su Jingyu and others were also bewildered, except for Su Qing. Because not long ago, she had just fought with Su Luo, so she could clearly see through her strength. Although Su Luo's cultivation among people of her age was pretty good, yet she still couldn't be compared to herself. Therefore, she was somewhat disdainful of Su Luo. Su Luo causally swept a glance at Su Zian. Seeing that he had a surprised expression, she nonchalantly said, "I was merely waiting for the right moment to give father a nice surprise. What possible plot could there be?" Su Zian, hearing this, his overly sensitive heart that was harmed just a moment ago by Su Wan, was healed. He was over the moon with joy. Yes, Su Wan, that selfish and loathsome girl, was driven out of the family, then forget it. Now, Luo girl was no longer a good-for-nothing, so he once again gained another daughter. As it turned out, before, he had never viewed Su Luo as his daughter. Su Wan saw that driving a wedge between them didn't work, so she changed to another method, sneeringly said, "Even if I am not able to beat you, so what? Su Luo, look clearly, now I am His Highness Prince Jin's people. If I ask people to kill you, who would dare to object?" She, Su Wan, now had a backer. Also, this backer was powerful and unsurpassed. If she didn't kill Su Luo today, she vowed not to let go. Su Wan secretly swore an oath in her heart. His Highness Prince Jin's people? Su Luo had one hand holding her arm and the other hand holding her chin in a pondering posture. Her eyes were flowing with light and brilliant colors, faintly smiling at Nangong Luyun while lifting an eyebrow. "Nangong Luyun, is she really your people?" Once these words came out, immediately everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Chapter 325. Returning to Su Manor, 25. Su Luo had gone insane. She actually dared to directly call His Highness Prince Jean by his given name. That was a taboo. Moreover, she also used that kind of arrogant tone that sounded quite disdainful. She actually dared to use this kind of attitude to speak to His Highness Prince Jean. Simply did not want to live. Just a moment ago, Su Zian had viewed Su Luo in a new favorable light. Now, he was itching to beat this daughter who had just popped up to death. He had said it before, not well-mannered enough to bring out in public, just could not be brought out in public. She didn't even understand a little bit of etiquette. Su Zian immediately kneeled on the ground in reverence and fear, and kowtowed to beg for forgiveness. Your Highness, please calm your anger. Su Luo, she is ignorant. Her mind is not very bright. Normally, she is always erratic and uncivil. She doesn't think before she speaks. Your Highness, you must by all means not lower yourself to her level. Su Zian was begging for forgiveness on one hand, while on the other hand, he wished he could directly strike Su Luo dead. This pest of a spirit that harmed people, did she not know that very possibly just because of this sentence, in an instant, the entire Su Manor would be a bloodbath? Su Zian saw His Highness Prince Jean had no reaction since the beginning, couldn't help but to take a furtive look towards him. But he only saw that remote and aloof His Highness Prince Jean, that was always calmly drinking tea with an uninterested expression that lacked any emotion. It was as if the matters taking place around him had nothing to do with him. Seeing this, Su Zian's mind became even more anxious. He lifted his hand, grabbing towards Su Luo. Loathsome girl, why haven't you already quickly kneeled down to beg for forgiveness from His Highness? Who knew that this grab of his would actually come up empty? Then when he lifted his eyes to look, he found that now, he had already lost sight of Su Luo's figure. At this moment, Su Luo had already moved to Nangong Liayun's side with her quick steps. This high and mighty person towering above very unhappily glared down at her. Su Zian, upon seeing this, could only feel his mind darken. It was a scorching, thunderous lightning that exploded, splitting open his brain. Oh heavens, this loathsome girl simply was leading Su Manor directly on the road to extinction. She actually still dared to stick her hands at her waist and glower at His Highness Prince Jean. At this moment, it was not only Su Zian. There was also Su Jingyu and Madame Su kind of people. They were all looking at Su Luo with a dumbfounded expression. Rays of extreme fear flashed through their eyes. Because this action of Su Luo's, in their eyes, appeared to be simply too brazen, too disgraceful, and too much like courting death. Su Wan pushed Su Luo with a very displeased expression. Why did you come over here? The one His Highness Prince Jean fancies is me and not you. Get lost. Saying this, Su Wan very rudely lifted her palm to slap towards Su Luo's face. Su Luo casually extended her hand. Effortlessly and with great ease, she captured Su Wan's moving hand. She cast her a quick glance with smile that was not quite a smiling expression. Someone just like you. Nangong Luyun would actually fancy you? Su Wan, don't forget that you right now is a fallen woman. Oh, your body was already sullied by another man. Oh. Su Wan was extremely angry. This matter was something she could not bear to recollect. Now, it was laid bare and revealed in front of everyone by Su Luo. Su Luo, it was you, right? That affair was you who did it, right? A crazy malicious radiance shone from Su Wan's eyes. On that day, that killer was clearly going to your courtyard to rape you, this slut. However, finally, in an unfathomable, mysterious way, he appeared on top of my bed. Furthermore, you know martial arts. You obviously knows martial arts, and not at a low level either. It was you. Clearly it was you. Su Luo, you slut. You ruined me. I want to kill you. Even if Su Wan was not completely right, but her guess was pretty close. On that day, it really was Su Luo who had set up that maneuver. It was also Su Luo who had reversed their roles and drugged her. At this moment, Su Wan's rage was difficult to manage. She was making threatening gestures to Su Luo and was about to claw at Su Luo's face. But now, Her martial arts ability just couldn't be compared to Su Luo's. Therefore, Su Luo easily and effortlessly flung her away, as if throwing away a coarse sack. Chapter 326, Returning to Su Manor, 26, Su Wan was flung to the ground. It hurt so much tears were about to come out of her eyes. However, her hatred had already blinded her eyes. She knew that the her right now was no match for Su Luo. Moreover, the her right now had already broken away from Su Manor. Therefore, Su Zian and his people simply would not stick up for her again. What to do? No, she still had Prince Jean. His Highness Prince Jean would help her. She was already His Highness Prince Jin's people now, wasn't she? He would even bestow such a precious medicinal pill to her. Why wouldn't he help her again to kill such a little minor person like Su Luo? As a result, Su Wan didn't have time to deal with the pain, crawling and moving towards His Highness Prince Jean. She complained tearfully, "Your Highness, I beseech you, help me kill Su Luo, that little slut. As long as you kill her, in the future, regardless of what you want me to do, I am completely willing. I beg you to help me avenge this hatred." Su Wan wept like a pear blossom in the rain. Right now, she truly had some delicate, fragile beauty that made the heart of people watching feel tenderness towards her. However, it was a pity. She was wrong. She was wrong from the onset. Moreover, she was outrageously wrong. Alas. Nangong Luyun finally put down the teacup in his hand. His gaze landed on Su Wan's body light as a feather. His intoxicating pair of eyes carried a touch of a smiling expression, seemingly ridiculing and mocking. He leisurely repeated what she said. "Kill Su Luo on your behalf?" Su Wan thought that His Highness Prince Jean had already agreed. Immediately, her grief turned into happiness. "Many thanks to your Highness. Many thanks for your Highness's help to accomplish this." After she was finished thanking His Highness Prince Jean, Su Wan immediately turned her head around and sinisterly stared at Su Luo with a cold and malicious smile said, "Little slut, you will die for sure." Indeed, people that His Highness Prince Jean was set on would always die very tragically, quite inhumanely. Both of Su Luo's hands were holding her arms, and with a faint smile, she cast sidelong glances at Nangong Luyun. "Oh, His Highness Prince Jin's charismatic beauty really is limitless. In the beginning, I heard people say you had deep feelings for second elder sister, and that it was serious. Afterwards again, rumors spread that you were infatuated with fifth younger sister. Now, what's this? You won't even let Su Wan, a fallen woman, slip by?" Hiss! Everybody at the scene inhaled a cold breath of air. Brave, too brave, simply full of bravery. This absolutely was the #1 bravest person since the beginning of history. This absolutely was the first time since the beginning of history that someone dared to speak like this to His Highness Prince Jean. Su Zian saw Nangong Luyun slowly stand up. His heart was extremely plaintive and aggravated. Finished, finished, finished. Su Manor was about to be done for. However, Nangong Luyun's movements afterwards surprised him until his chin almost dropped to the ground. He only saw that remote and aloof, godlike Nangong Luyun smilingly rub Su Luo's head. "Oh, this King's Luo girl is jealous, really hard to come by." His Highness Prince Jin's devilishly charming voice also carried a touch of tender sentiments. That tone clearly had hints of a spoiling, indulging, and conniving expression. In addition, there was also his ecstatic address of her as this King's Luo girl. At this moment, in all directions around, it was quiet. It was so quiet that the people watching could hear the sound of each other's heartbeat. This was because this situation was really too strange. So strange that everyone was incredulous. They were all staring outrageously at the couple in front of their eyes who were like a pair of jade annulus. However, what made them even more stunned was what was still to come. They only saw Su Luo directly step on his foot. Her tone was ice cold as she said, "Who is your Luo girl?" "In your dreams." "Humph, you are such a womanizer, attracting the bees and butterflies, one on the left and another on the right nonstop." Su Luo, she stepped on His Highness Prince Jin's foot. It was absolutely the truth, because on His Highness Prince Jin's black leather boots, there was clearly a distinct mark of a footprint. His Highness Prince Jin that was just stepped on, this time ought to get angry, right? Everyone present all looked towards His Highness Prince Jin expectantly. Su Luo deserved to die, too deserving of death. She actually went and stepped on His Highness Prince Jin's foot? Could it be that she didn't know? The thing that annoyed His Highness Prince Jin the most, greatest and utterly, was when someone stepped on his foot. Okay? Chapter 327, Returning to Su Manor, 27, however. Against everyone's expectations, His Highness Prince Jin didn't get angry at all. His Highness Prince Jin not only didn't get angry, on the contrary, he even smiled dim-wittedly. His face was full of happiness and bliss. Yes, that's right. It was exactly a blissful, happy, and silly smile. This smile appeared on the face of His Highness Prince Jin. That was like Yama, the king of hell, ice-cold and unsympathetic. Moreover, his voice clearly carried a thread of currying favor with her and a trace of childishness, acting like a spoiled little boy. This king's Luo girl has just felt jealous. Just listen to the words he said. Simply too childish. People who heard this almost had goosebumps. This basically was not that savage and callous His Highness Prince Jin that was from their impression. Clearly, he had completely changed into another person. However, Su Luo still hadn't bought into his act, and unrestrainedly, she directly sat on the chair he was just sitting on. She took the teacup, and before she could pour the tea, His Highness Prince Jin had earlier already grasped the teapot and proceeded to politely pour the tea for her. His voice was extremely gentle and tender. "The tea is somewhat cold. Drink less of it. Later, this king will personally boil tea for you to drink." Su Luo snappily glared at him. "Again, you want to tempt and coax me to go over? Definitely not listening to your deception. Where would I dare to deceive you? How about this king carry you over in a palanquin with 8 bearers?" Nangong Luyun smiled roguishly while moving closer to her. "Dream on. You, move away from me." Su Luo glared at him, and she pushed him away from in front of her eyes. The two of them acted as if no one else was present, going back and forth in a tit-for-tat. This was how they would normally interact with each other. However, in the eyes of the people nearby, this was too much of a shock. This was already something that words could not be used to describe. Su Zian unwaveringly stared at the two people in front of his eyes who seemed to be chatting about trivial things. His brain went blank and was frozen. It seemed as if his thought process had forgotten how to keep turning. Su Jingyu had his mouth opened wide, so surprised that he was simply godsmacked. Madame Su's pair of eyes flashed with malicious rays. The embroidered handkerchief in her hand was nearly torn to shreds. The eyes Su Qing used to look at Su Luo had a deep and cold-killing intent. The one who found it hardest to accept was really Su Wan. She already didn't have Su Manor as a way out. The only person she could rely on for support was His Highness Prince Jin. But now, His Highness Prince Jin was exchanging flirtatious glances with Su Luo. However, just a moment ago, she had clearly asked His Highness Prince Jin to go kill Su Luo. This simply was. Now, the complicated mood in Su Wan's heart simply could not be described by words. She merely thought that she was about to go insane. No way. His Highness Prince Jin was hers. She absolutely could not let Su Luo snatch him away. Absolutely would not permit it. Su Wan, staggering along, climbed up from the ground. From the hair on top of her head, she pulled out a sharp, thin hairpin and directly stabbed towards Su Luo's throat. "Slut, I want to kill you." Su Wan was aggressive and her eyes had a malicious and crazy light. With her disheveled hair, she looked somewhat malevolent and terrifying. However, without waiting for her to get closer, when Su Luo still hadn't reacted, Nangong Luyuan directly flapped his sleeves and swept Su Wan far, far away. Bang! One could only hear a violent crashing sound. Su Wan's entire person was gravely flung into the wall. The strength was so great that almost the entire room was shaking. Under normal circumstances, it's only correct that she ought to slide down along the smooth wall. But, since it was His Highness Prince Jin that acted, it just wouldn't be that simple. One could only see that His Highness Prince Jin's strength had actually directly made Su Wan smash into the wall, forming a person-shaped deep indentation. Su Wan simply could not even fall down. Her entire person, in that manner, hung on the wall. Cough, cough, cough. Su Wan repeatedly coughed. One mouthful of blood after another burst out, seemingly as if it doesn't cost money coming from her mouth. After directly vomiting out more than 10 mouthfuls of blood, she was barely able to stop it. Chapter 328, Returning to Su Manor, 28. Now, Su Wan's complexion was as white as paper. It seemed like she had only a flimsy thread of breath left, and she looked exceedingly weak. It seemed possible that with the very next breath, she would die. Nobody dared to step forward to lift Su Wan down from the wall. First, because it was His Highness Prince Jin who had acted, and second, it was because Su Wan had already broken away from the Su family. So as far as they were concerned, she was only an outsider now. For what reason? Su Wan weakly opened her mouth to ask. While she was speaking, another mouthful of blood violently sprayed out. A loud thump sound rang out when her body tumbled to the floor. She almost passed out due to the severity of the pain from the fall. Nangong Liuyun's gaze was lazy and devilishly charming. He cast an indifferent sidelong glance at her. "For what reason? Your Highness is treating me like this. Just a moment ago, didn't you say, 'I am your Highness's woman'?" Su Wan's pair of eyes stared fixedly at Nangong Luyun. Her breath was feeble as she stared at him. Just now everything was going well, but ever since Su Luo appeared, everything changed afterwards. Nangong Luyun started to laugh softly. His pair of peerless black eyes was completely apathetic. "When did this king acknowledge you as this king's people?" "Well, what? Did His Highness Prince Jin actually never acknowledge this point?" It was not just Su Wan. Almost everyone present was stunned as they stared at Nangong Luyun, who was pulling Su Luo to stand by his side. A sarcastic arc arose on his peerless, handsome face. That's right, thinking back, a moment ago, it was only Su Wan who was saying those words by herself. In fact, from start to finish, His Highness Prince Jin never did acknowledge her, but Your Highness also never denied her claims either. For what reason would he do this? Recalling His Highness Prince Jin's conduct and deeds towards Su Wan just now, everyone felt was somewhat weird. Finally, it was still Nangong Luyun who helped clear up their confusion, and in passing, letting Su Wan become an enlightened ghost. Nangong Luyun, whose position was high above, looked down with a penetrating gaze that radiated an ice-cold light. He smiled with not quite a smile while lifting an eyebrow. "Before, the water that you drank was especially sweet. Am I right?" Su Wan was bewildered as she looked at Nangong Luyun with uncertainty. How could His Highness Prince Jin even know of this? Could he have cared about her this much? Nangong Luyun smiled sinisterly and charmingly while continuing his explanation. "When you sleep, it's especially deep and you always have nightmares. Am I right?" Su Wan had a startled expression as she stared at Nangong Luyun. "Obesity poison," said Nangong Luyun with clear, bright, and mesmerizing obsidian eyes. His black pupils that concealed a hawk-like gaze were sharp and cutting. He continued with the confidence of his convictions, as if everything was his by right. "That was the elixir that this king had dispatched people to secretly poison you with." "What?" The person who poisoned Su Wan was actually His Highness Prince Jin? Why would he do this? What hatred did he have for Su Wan? Wasn't directly killing her the same? Why would he torment her like this? Everybody was terrified and awed by this admission. Su Wan was immediately stunned stupid. She would never have expected that it was actually His Highness Prince Jin who poisoned her. Furthermore, he also revealed this news in a tone that was as if it was right and expected. For what reason? Before this, she basically had never really seen His Highness Prince Jin, let alone having offended him. Even if she had offended him, he could just have her killed directly in response. Why would he waste so much effort to arrange this? For what reason? Nangong Luyun smiled faintly. Such a forgetful Mississippi. Could it be that you forgot the matter from before of going to the Mercenary Union to issue a task? The matter of issuing a task? Su Xian's eyelids jumped at that time. Hadn't they suspected Su Luo for issuing that task? Why was it that now, in a blink of an eye, it had changed into being Su Wan? In the end, how was this matter related? His pair of malicious eyes was tightly fixed on Su Wan, trying to find any clue on her face. Now, Su Wan's eyes shrank back, cowering in fear. She didn't expect that this matter would actually be known by His Highness Prince Jin. Chapter 329. Returning to Su Manor, 29. But what I issued was to have a man rape Su Luo. Yet towards you. Su Wan's gaze slid down and saw that his large palm was holding firmly onto Su Luo's hand. Suddenly, she was shocked. Could it be that His Highness Prince Jin was taking revenge for Su Luo? Oh heavens, but this was impossible. How could the stately and majestic Prince Jin take revenge for that Su Luo who was a good-for-nothing? This kind of trivial matter shouldn't even enter his judicious eyes. Alas, such a pitiful child. Nangong Luyun sighed. A rolled-up paper flew out from his sleeves and smashed on top of Su Wan's head. He understatedly said, "Take it, examine it well. This is the method you are about to die from." This sentence of death from His Highness Prince Jin's mouth was as simple as eating food or drinking water. Even the venerable Beichening had received his proper punishment. How could a lowly person like Su Wan escape? People that were involved in this matter, except for Beichening, were all without exception ruthlessly dealt with by Nangong Luyun. Su Wan was trembling and simply did not dare to open that task form sheet. It was something she had personally signed. How could she not know what was written inside? At that time, they wrote 3 copies of this agreement. One copy was filed away in the Mercenary Union, another in the hands of the killer, and the final copy was in her own hands. She had already destroyed the copy in her hands long ago. This copy now should have been seized from the Mercenary Union. The venerable Beichening from the Mercenary Union was His Highness Prince Jin's people. If she had known earlier that Su Luo and His Highness Prince Jin had something to do with each other, she would never have gone to the Mercenary Union. No matter how you said it, it was thousands and tens of thousands she should not have. She should never have set herself against Su Luo. A clear line of remorseful tears rolled down Su Wan's face. With a trembling voice, she said, "Your Highness Prince Jin is very calculating, laying down such a great scheme. First, you made me utterly isolate myself by having my name struck off from the family genealogy records. Subsequently, you proceeded to tell the truth about this matter, making me suffer so much pain and grief that I would be better off dead. Very brilliant strategy. Since that obesity poison was put in place by His Highness Prince Jin, then that medicinal pill. This medicinal pill will make your body send out a rare perfume, even after your death, so your corpse will still be very alluring. Well, of course, only as far as magical beasts are concerned." Nangong Luyun held his chin in a contemplative posture, saying the truth in a manner that was full of good intentions. That's right, after death, her corpse must be torn apart by magical beasts. Gnawed upon until even the skeleton would be gone. This was indeed what she wrote for this task. Su Wan recalled up to here. She then immediately fainted from fear and despair. Drag her away. Carry it out according to the original plan. Nangong Luyun carelessly waved his hand. Immediately, a bodyguard came forward from among the guards at his back. Like a fierce tiger, he rushed towards Su Wan. He carried her over his shoulder, and in a flash, he had already left Su Manor, darting towards the vast, great mountains. Su Manor, the reception hall. When all the people present saw Su Wan being carried away, without exception, they felt chills down their spines. His Highness Prince Jean had deep thoughts and planned ahead. He handled matters as he pleased without the slightest scruple. Moreover, his methods were cruel and bloody. People simply could not bear to see it. He clearly could have just straight out killed Su Wan, but he would not. He insisted on planning it step by step, making Su Wan experience again and again the despair of going from heaven to hell. Only after he finished playing did he let her know it was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, making sure that even after death, she would not be able to have an intact corpse. Su Zian only felt that he couldn't keep his lips from trembling. This kind of Prince Jean was simply too terrifying. However, his gaze stopped and fixed on the hand His Highness Prince Jean used to hold Su Luo. This time ought to be the real one, right? Truth be told, Su Zian was already scared silly. From Su Qing to Su Shi, from Su Shi to Su Wan, and once more from Su Wan to Su Luo. His, Su Zian's, 4 daughters appeared one, followed closely by another, only to be rejected one after another. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.